participate in the free and open exchange of thoughts and ideas throughout the entire week by visiting MikeGinthemorning.com. What's it called, Philly Chris?
MikeGinthemorning.com.
How about you, Russ?
MikeGinthemorning.com.
Liberty there? We got a stand-in. We got the Justice Brother, Richard Roberts. Tell us what it's called, my friend.
MikeGinthemorning.com.
So tell your friends, tell your family, tell your barber, tell your Uncle Jerry, tell anybody who'll listen to check us out at MikeGinthemorning.com. Don't forget to like our YouTube videos and subscribe. I also want to remind our listeners about the powerhouse lineup we've got here at the Freedom Station. Kick off your mornings with Scott Adams, bringing you the Scott Adams Show weekdays from 9 a.m. until 11. Coming at you at 11 o'clock, we got the Kinetic Faith Show with Rick Crump, friend of the program, preaching values, service, and order, weekdays at 11. We've got the one and only Dan the Man Bongino, bringing you the Dan Bongino Show weekdays from noon until 3 p.m. We've got intellectual giant Ben Shapiro, bringing you the Ben Shapiro Show weekdays from 3 to 5 p.m. And finally, we've got Michael Knowles, bringing you the Michael Knowles Show weekdays from 5 to 6 p.m. So don't forget to tune in and show them some love. I want to remind our listeners that today's episode of the Mike G in the Morning program is brought to you by Elite Tactical Armory. Do you know what a commercial armory is? Well, you should, because David Coates came on and taught you all about it just a few weeks ago. There are a number of reasons why you might want to store your firearms off-site, and Elite Tactical Armory is your firearm storage solution in the Lehigh Valley. What are some of the reasons you want to store your firearms at a commercial armory? Well, one would be if you got a kid who's on probation. Let's say you got somebody accusing you of something, like an ex-wife, again. Or maybe you just ran out of room for all your precious babies, or you're going out of town for a while. So go ahead and check our friends out over at Elite Tactical Armory. It's EliteTacticalArmory.com or PACommercialArmory.com. That's EliteTacticalArmory.com or PACommercialArmory.com. Because it's important to support those who support freedom. And be sure and tell them Mike G sent you. You know, Rich, we run into these issues quite often where somebody is subject to maybe a bail condition, right? They've been accused of a crime. Maybe they were defending themselves. And in that bail order, they're not allowed to possess firearms or have firearms in the home. We run into that quite a bit, don't we, Rich?
Absolutely. I think anytime there's a allegation where a firearm's involved, I can almost guarantee a bail condition is going to be you must relinquish possession of all firearms in the home, not just the one allegedly used in the crime, but everything that you have. And that's Elite Tactical Armory is an excellent place to go because that provides a place to store it.
Well, the alternative is that you turn them in to law enforcement.
To the law enforcement or the sheriff. And when your case is resolved, hopefully in your favor, it's not always show up, hey, I was found not guilty, case is dismissed, please give me my firearms back. They go, well, wait a minute. And then you're fighting a year later. You may have to file a motion for return of property. It costs you a whole bunch more money.
Right.
So stuff that doesn't matter because, you know, Mike, you and I have done quite a few petitions for return of property where a cop was like, no. I'm like, well, the case is over. Stop. There's no restrictions. Yeah, you have to get a court to order me to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's just extra time, extra effort. You file a petition. It's
extra money.
Right.
Sometimes people could end up spending more money than the firearms are worth in those situations. It's
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a real hassle. And then you file a petition and like, well, file a petition. I have every right to get them back. I guarantee the judge isn't just going to sign an order. He's going to want to have a hearing and going to take a month, 2, maybe 3, depending on the judge's calendar to get you in for a hearing. So it's time, effort, and money, frankly.
And sometimes when you get them back, they're not in the same condition as when they left your home, right?
Never accuse law enforcement of tampering with anybody's fire.
Well, even if they don't do it intentionally, if they're not storing them properly, or if they're not handling them properly, and even accidents can happen. Let's say they drop the thing or something. If you don't want to run that risk, then a commercial armory like Elite Tactical Armory is the best solution.
Absolutely. Elite Tactical is going to store them properly, the way they're supposed to. They're going to be insured. There's going to be some guaranteed because of what you're paying for them to store it. I can tell you right now, you give them to law enforcement, a sheriff, or your local police department is going in some evidence locker somewhere and just it'll sit there. You don't know what kind of condition it is, climate controlled, are there leaks, is it lit in water? I'm sure they don't go back there and check. They're not, If you're in a situation where you unfortunately find yourself in that situation, whether it's a false allegation, true allegation, whatever the case may be, I would always encourage my clients to go to a commercial armory rather than hand them over to law enforcement.
Check them out, Elite Tactical Armory and PAcommerciallyarmory.com, and be sure and tell them Mike G sent you. And with that, you know what time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride. Hit it, Russ. You know what time it is. Buckle up and enjoy the ride. I may have jumped the gun there a little bit. I got involved in a conversation with Rich about Elite Tactical Armory, went off on a tangent over there a little bit, but I think it's important for people to know that kind of stuff because we deal with it constantly. Tell me, Chris, did my eyes deceive me, or were you eating in the middle of the program? Just eating during the show?
Oh, I'm just finishing my spaghetti.
Finishing your spaghetti. Did you make that yourself?
I did. I figured Rich is on, so I have it easy tonight, Little Italian dinner.
That's all the Italians eat is spaghetti and meatballs.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
You have your own recipe? Do you think that maybe we can make some kind of a video where you teach our audience members how to make a proper spaghetti and meatballs?
Yeah, let's do it. My grandmother on my Italian side taught me how to make some really good meatballs. So
I think that you had a story about one of your friends who was having trouble with the sheriff over in Philadelphia getting a firearm returned.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah. I do recall that they went down there multiple times and were turned away. And there was all this stuff about had to come back certain days and times. And they followed those procedures. And, of course, that wasn't good enough and ended up having to get an attorney involved to reach out to those folks just to get their property back. So, yeah, it's pretty ridiculous the way things operate down there.
It's good that they were able to find an attorney
who
was able to do it, because a lot of times those ventures become cost prohibitive very quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're trying to get back one or two guns, you're easily going to outspend that, depending on what kind of guns, of course. But many times people just decide, I'm just going to let it go. And ultimately, they win. The government wins.
Sure.
Person doesn't get their property back, and it's simply not fair.
Yeah.
Didn't you have a run-in with the Philadelphia Sheriff's Office fairly recently as well?
Yeah, pretty recent, actually. Yeah. Nice little visit there. Stopping in to visit them to drop some paperwork off. They weren't real happy about that.
Doing some process serving?
Yeah, a little process serving down there, and they didn't seem to want to follow the law. They wanted to throw it back at me, so that didn't go over very well with me. And
they threw the papers back at you?
Oh, yeah, in the elevator. It was exciting. A little bit of excitement there.
So what happens? You go in there, you get off the elevator, you hand them the papers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, put it through the little window in the glass there, and then they had all kinds of questions. Like 20 minutes later, they come back. Yeah, I'm waiting impatiently, and it had already been served. I didn't really need to stick around. And then they followed me out to the elevator because I got somebody's name and thanked them for their time, and went to leave. The sheriff put his foot right in the elevator door and tossed it right back into the elevator. So I opened the door and gave it right back to them, and told them they'd be listed in the affidavit as receiving it. So, but apparently they didn't want to follow the procedures and the law themselves. But some of them are above the law down there in Philly, it seems like. So
you guys are throwing these papers back and forth at one another. You realize it's not a game of tag, right?
No, not really.
Like, you're right. No, you're right. I'm unserved. I was served and I'm unserved.
We're not servicing anybody. I'm like, you know what this is. Come on. Stop the nonsense.
Rich, have you ever heard of this?
No, honestly, because usually, not from a sheriff or a government official. I've seen that from people.
Yeah, right.
But not from a government official. I was like, is this the first time? I doubt it is. You probably get served 3 times a day. What's your problem? I mean,
right.
It's like I got served. Okay.
You would think they'd be familiar with the process.
Yeah.
And if they're trying to tell you that they're not going to do it, the remedy would be saying, listen, man, I'm going to sign an affidavit saying that I served you because I did. You've been served. And if you want to show up to court and take an oath and lie under oath and say that I didn't, and risk losing your job and risk being charged with a crime, then go ahead. That's your business. Because if you try to tell the judge this nonsense you're telling me that you didn't want to be served, guess what the judge is going to say? They're going to say, too bad. That's not the way it works.
Right.
Although they seem to have a different...
It's illegal to avoid service. You're not allowed to. I mean, if they miss you, but you can't intentionally avoid being served, that is also a crime.
Yeah. They had it in their possession. They were holding it on the other side of the glass, and they decided to.
Bye. Have a nice day.
I was about to say, "Are you detaining me? Like your foot's in the elevator? Like, am I being detained right now? What's going on?"
Is that kidnapping, Rich? I'm not a kidnapper.
Yeah, it could be.
Multiple times the foot was in the elevator door.
Game of tag, buddy. You could throw it back at me. See, the problem is you handed it back to him. I'd have left it in the elevator. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
You might want to respond to that. That's okay.
Right. Like, what are we going to do with this? I'm like, I don't know. Call the attorney listed on the out there.
Or call your attorney, right? I'm sure they've got a legal department, no?
Sure, yeah.
They have a solicitor. Yeah, absolutely.
And another building.
Well,
we have to go. You can email it to them. Hey, we got this. You got 20 days to answer it. I don't know. Right.
It was fun. It was exciting. A little exciting.
That's pretty good. I heard that you and Rich got into a fight before I came on before.
I think that was actually Russ and Rich, wasn't it? What was going on there? I think it was Russ.
I thought it was you and Rich. I heard you and Rich have got some beef now.
The fight you're talking about, your fight with Russ, the match that's coming up.
No, I heard that you two were fighting before I came on, so I was wondering if you and Rich were going to fight on the
Maybe I should challenge him to a match while you and Russ have your match as a second match. Yeah.
Chris and Rich.
We could tag team against Philly, Chris, and Russ.
There we go.
Oh, how great would that be? The Justice Brothers.
I call fighting the old guy.
Right.
It just so happens that.
Can I use my feet though?
Nah.
Your feet?
Yeah.
To tag him?
No, during the fight.
What are we
doing? MMA or boxing? What are we doing?
No. We don't do kick fighting.
No kick fighting? Come on.
We do street fighting.
Well, you're a boxer. You're going to take me with your boxing.
No kick fighting.
Anything goes.
Anything goes. There we go.
You can bring knives. You can bring chains.
I'll bring a bag of bees.
Negotiating the terms. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Gangs of New York.
Yeah, great movie.
The negotiating the terms at the end. Pistols? No pistols. Good choice.
There was another movie where they did that. It was a gang fight. It was The Cross and the Switchblade. I don't know if you ever seen that movie about Nicky Cruz. And they came up with like chains, blades, bats. I forget. They had like a bunch of weapons that were acceptable.
Okay.
No zip guns, though, they said. No zip guns.
No zip guns.
Russ, do you have that picture? I wanted to show this picture of the Justice Brothers, another vintage photo that I found. And it's perfect timing because of what we're discussing right now. So, Russ, if you can pull up that photo, Rich and I have a story to tell.
Uh-oh.
Oh, crap, I lost the chat.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, there we have it. Check this out. Look at you guys.
There we go. Is it on the screen over there?
Couple of tough guys.
Are you
I don't think it's on the screen yet.
Oh, now it is. I think it is now.
It's taking up the whole screen.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, that's right. Hey,
who are you guys with there?
So that is
that's me.
Rich and I. We went and attended a wrestling event in Bethlehem years ago. I was going to say fairly recently, but it's not really fairly recently. It's got to be like 5 years ago at this point, right?
Probably. I think I still work. Yeah, I still worked at the original firm I started at that point. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. So that is the long lost Justice Brother who's in the photo with us.
Yeah.
The third Justice Brother that nobody knows about, right?
That's right, because he went on to the Federal Defender's Office. He works in Ohio. He does capital habeas work. So
defends death penalty cases out there. He was with the Innocence Project before that in Philadelphia.
We call him the smart Justice Brother because he does all that cerebral work that we're like, no.
The appellate work. Yeah, we got to be a lot more theatrical with what we do, right, Rich?
Correct. But he is
Have him on the show.
If you ever get a chance, the legal writing that I do, he brought me into, and he's probably one of the best legal writers I've ever read. Just the way he writes is short, simple. he uses reasoning, and he's very persuasive.
Yeah, and he knows it too.
No, he knows. He'll tell you, and it's tough because I'm like, I can't really argue with that. No.
He's a big wrestling fan, and he knew before we did that the show was going to be in town. We had a great time over at the casino. It's called something different now, isn't it?
Wind Creek in Bethlehem now. Wind Creek. I just want to point out that Mike G is the only person to have a suit jacket and dress shirt on at a wrestling show. So I was like, what are you wearing?
You gotta look good. You look pretty good there, Mike.
Conor McGregor sitting in the front row. You know, I want you next. I had to be ready to call out the next guy while I was nice. Drew McIntyre. And Drew McIntyre
was at that event, right?
At that event, and he's champion of the world last year.
Right. It was like really NXT or something like that. It's like they're developmental, but it was great. It really was. I hadn't been to a wrestling event in, I don't know, had to be 10 or 15 years since I was, a teenager at least. And it was just, we had a blast. It was a lot of fun.
Wasn't the Nice Ninja was there that night too, right?
The Nice Ninja, he was in on the card. So that is, and just for the record, the reason I was wearing a suit, it's not like I got ready in the mirror to go to the wrestling event in my suit. I did a seminar before I got there.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
No, he wore the suit on purpose. He was embarrassed.
Hey. It's like, I thought we were all wearing suits, guys. And I just noticed I've got a cigar in the pocket over there. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, yeah, right at the bottom there. Nice.
Good night of wrestling and cigars. So one thing that I recall about that event is we chose to very vocally cheer for everybody who the crowd was cheering against, right? We figured out who the crowd wanted to win, who the good guy was, and the three of us just went nuts cheering for the other guy.
Awesome.
And there were some guys that went on to be on TV and WWE. And then other guys, you could tell they were just journeymen. I think they call them jobbers. They just show up in town to town to get beat by other guys. And I remember this one guy in particular, Rich. I don't know if you recall this. His name was Raul Mendoza.
That was it. I was thinking of that guy, but yeah. Yeah, there was one guy who we broke him out of character because we're like cheering for this guy like nuts, and he must have been a journeyman because I've never seen him or heard about him. And
well, he wasn't in great shape, He wasn't a big guy. He didn't have muscle definition. He didn't look like, a high-end professional wrestler. But we decided we're all in on Raul Mendoza. And by the end of the match, I think he ended up losing, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, he lost.
But at the end of the match, the three of us started the Raul Mendoza chant, Raul Mendoza, the claps, and we got the entire arena to follow us.
Right.
And the entire arena is chanting for this guy, Raul Mendoza. The entire arena.
Yeah, no, the whole place.
Looking around, I thought he was going to cry because that's never happened to him ever.
Ever. Right.
At any event. So it was a lot of fun.
Right.
It was a lot of fun. But so the next event, though, we will be on the card. And I guess it's going to be a tag team match.
There we go, tag team.
Versus Philly, Chris, and Russ.
Yeah.
Oh, no, these guys are never going to make it on TV either. No.
Oh, this might make it on TV.
That's funny.
We'll use our weight advantage, Russ.
Let's see what we've got going on here because the chat is going gangbusters.
Yeah,
right
we've
now.
got good number of folks in there tonight. Welcome, everybody. Welcome.
Can we separate these people? Are these people fighting still? I see a fight going on early on. I told them to be nice, and it looks like they didn't listen to me, and they kept going.
Yeah.
Andrew Wardeck says, "Is this live?" Give him a hey now, Philly Chris.
Hey now, Andrew. This is live. Coming at you live. Mike G in the morning, in the evening.
Jeremy Miller, Rich, says, when we're talking about how people's firearms get damaged, says, what, you're saying someone who works for the government would handle a firearm with negligence? Never.
That's what I said. I didn't say they did. I said I would never suspect that would ever happen.
Yeah, sure. Not like they put it in a moist 50-gallon drum with a bunch of other big pieces of metal.
I've been to plenty of police stations in my day, and they're not the most structurally sound facilities.
Andrew says, the police confiscated my wooden gun for doing a desk pop. Can Mike G help me get it back? Do you know about the desk pop, Rich?
No.
The desk pop comes from that movie, The Other Guys, with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg. and Derek Jeter's in the movie too.
Oh, okay. All right.
And they convinced Will Ferrell because he's not one of the guys that everybody does it, that you just shoot a gun in the office. and he does it, despot, but he gets in a bunch of trouble. So one of the attorneys we work with, anytime we deal with a negligent discharge case, he always calls it a desk pop as a result. And Rich, remember that case that you and I dealt with where the guy had the ND in the bank?
Yeah.
What happened?
There was a negligent discharge in a bank.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. That's always a good place to have one. Yeah, right?
Not a good place to have.
I do remember that. Mike called me. I said, what? I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, no, he's in a bank. I was like, he's in a bank?
Wow.
What was he doing in the bank? And then we got through it. I mean, it worked out well for him. But, I mean, it's just, it only takes, he said, I remember, it's like, people tell you it all the time when the negligent discharge. I've done this a million times. I'm like, yeah, but it only takes once for you to forget to do one thing. And
that's it.
Was it in like a safety deposit box or something?
Mike and I get a little pushback because they always tell the negligent discharge. We're like, no, it's an accident. I'm like, well, no, I don't. Because there's certain process you got to do, and you have to fail on more than one of these processes in order for that to happen. And in my book, I'm not saying that you did it on purpose. It's negligence, though. It's a negligence action. You got to maintain that when you're handling your firearm, always assume it's loaded, and when you think it, you got to make sure it's unloaded.
Mm-hmm.
Failure to do that is a problem, and that's negligence in my book. And I think Mike's the one who taught me that. He's like, no, I don't ever call it accidental. It's negligent. You mess something up.
Is that a legal definition by any chance? Is there like a legal definition for that?
So when you're talking about negligence, at least from the civil perspective, you got the elements, right, Rich? You got duty, breach, causation, harm.
Yep.
You have a duty to exercise the appropriate standard of care. Now, there's a lot that you have to do when exercising care when you're handling objects that are inherently dangerous, right? If you're going to drive a gas truck, for example, then you've got to be extra careful. You got to make sure you don't cause explosions and stuff.
Make sure the windows are up when you're smoking and stuff.
Right. Yeah. Things like that. No, that's what I mean. You have a duty of care. You got to. Firearm is designed by its very nature to kill things. I mean, you understand by possessing that firearm comes with the responsibility to handle it with care.
Yeah. And there's a high standard of care when you're talking about the harm that can occur, right? So that's why you've always got to follow every single rule every single time, as Jose says on that public service announcement, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Always I've got a comment over here, Rich. I'm proud of this one. Referring to the WWE photo, DG says, little disappointed, Rich. MG is dressed nicely.
Oh!
Beat him out that day. Yeah.
We're not. DG and I are no longer cool. We can't.
Uh-oh.
We need to Photoshop that.
You and Gary will get along then.
I'll get you a custom suit on you in that picture.
In that picture? Yeah, we need to put something on there.
Or maybe we just need to go to a new WWE.
One picture where he's dressed nicer than me and then puts that.
That's right. That's right. It wasn't even my fault. It wasn't even intentional. So there are a couple of things that I want to talk about this evening, Rich. Before we do that, any war stories that we need to talk about before we get into these philosophical discussions, so to speak?
War stories. Anything interesting recently?
Yeah, anything interesting that we need to talk about. I know the Justice Brothers have had quite a few adventures.
Definitely quite a few adventures recently. We've had, victims who are not really victims. Yeah. It's always my favorite. That was interesting. I mean,
we've had people realize. Let's talk about that, though, Rich. Do you think people realize how often
I think
absolute dirtbags attack somebody, then pick the wrong person, that person's armed, and they run away and call the police, and they pointed a gun at me. And they always have the same story, right? I was gingerly knocking on the window to get their attention and make sure they were okay.
I was just knocking on the window, and They turned around and just shoved the gun in my face. I'm like, wow, that's dramatic. That's an escalation I didn't see coming. What I think, and I think clients in that perspective don't understand that, and I think it's important because I know Mike says lawyer up and shut up, and the reason is you have to understand when police officers are not there to determine who's telling the truth. That is not what they're there to do, right? That's not their job. They gather facts. Based on those facts, is a crime committed? Yes, we charge them. Who determines what the truth is? That's a jury, right? That's what a jury or a judge in a bench trial, the fact finder determines what the facts are. And when it comes down to it, if an individual comes to a police officer and says, I was minding my own business, I was trying to get somebody's attention, they pointed a gun at me, that's a crime. If that's what actually happened, that's a crime, okay? Now, of course, the person who was forced to pull their firearm in self-defense, when Mike and I get involved, say, it's not what happened, he was going nuts, I couldn't help it, blah, 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 I was forced to do this. Great, but the bottom line is, the officer's not going to say, I believe you and not believe him, I'm not charging you. That's the problem. And the issue becomes is people get upset because they're telling the truth. And I go, well, the issue we have here is that's for the jury. Why doesn't the cop believe me? Cop could believe you, but his job is not to determine what actually happened. It's not really what
when you put this in a different context than self-defense, people understand it better, right, Rich?
Well, I usually go to the simple fact that, listen, I've done sexual assault cases, rape cases, right? And there's two defenses for a rape case. One, it wasn't me. I'm not the person she's daring. And I have to be honest, I've never had one of those.
They call it the Shaggy defense, right?
Right. 1 minute, right? Or it's consensual. So a woman gets up, testifies that this gentleman did X, Y, and Z. It was rape. I didn't want to do it. Guy says it was consensual. There's not a cop I've ever run into. A law enforcement official says, I believe him, not her, no charges. No. We charge. Jury figures out whether or not it was consensual. And people go, oh, yeah. I'm like, the same principle in cases like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sometimes we have to bring things out of the gun law world in order for people to adequately understand them. One that I often run into is you have one person accusing another person of something. And I'll get these clients who will say things like, oh, well, they can't bring charges if there's no other witnesses and if they don't have it on tape. They should have to bring it on tape and they should have to have some other kinds of evidence. They'll say they have no evidence. They have no evidence. No, testimony is absolutely evidence. They say, well, that's just he said, she said. It's evidence. And then they say, well, it shouldn't be like that. That's not fair. I say, okay. So if your mom is walking around at night and somebody drags her into a dark alley where nobody sees her and it's not on tape and rapes her and beats her. Anybody's mom. Okay. It's usually a knucklehead I'm talking to. I try to put tell them, imagine your mom gets dragged into a dark alley, nobody sees it, and there's no videotape of it, and she gets beaten and raped. Should that guy not be able to be charged because there's no other witnesses and no videotape? And they're like, oh, okay, I guess that makes sense.
Well, depends on what city, because they'll probably let the person back out anyway later that day.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. Hey, Rich, is that your experience, Philadelphia? We need to, all these, I hear about all these prosecutors that
just let stuff go in Philadelphia. Yeah. I want you to introduce me to those prosecutors, because I got about 10 clients who I'd love just for that to make it go away. Yeah. Tucker
Carlson talks about that all the time, right? They're just letting people out all over.
Yeah.
I go, I need to get on that bus.
Yeah. How do we get a hold of that?
Wow.
Well, maybe they're not hardened criminals enough. I think it's only if you have a really, really long rap sheet or something. Your clients are not quite in that category.
We actually did make a joke about that with the prosecutor today because he was complaining about some other jurisdictions. And he said something along those lines, Chris. He was
really? Yeah.
Yeah, he was saying that, the worse the guys are, it seems they get out more frequently.
Yeah.
And I made a joke. I said, yeah, if you're a gun owner, if they catch you with a gun, they say, oh, you do have a license to carry firearms? We're taking you straight to jail.
Right. I actually have a clip in the doc about some of that going on in New York, clip number 5. I don't know if you want to play it now since we're talking about it, but.
What, in New York?
Yeah, about them letting people out. There was something regarding gun stuff. We can play it later if you want, but or whenever.
Why not? Let's let
you want to play it now?
Yeah, let's talk about it with
Yeah.
Rich.
Well, we got Rich on.
We haven't got a hold of these mythical prosecutors. We've got to fight for every single inch that we got. We got to go in there and bust skulls. Right?
Yeah, no, it's different.
All I hear about is people left out. I'm like, whoever the defense attorney is on these cases, I'm gonna go spend some couple of days with him just to learn how you do this, because I never had this advantage.
Right.
You just walk in and say, I'm going to respectfully request that you withdraw the charges.
And every time they go, yep, no problem. Done. See ya. I'm like, wow.
Well, since you said please, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, see?
What's his prior record score? He's 5? All right, we'll let him out.
The R fell? Oh, man. R fell. It's even easier. Definitely let out.
Let him out.
No prior record? That's life sentence, man. What?
So what do we got here?
You got it there, Russell?
What number is it?
I saw Russ working on it. Russ is on his game tonight.
All right, so I see the thing. I'm already going to have a criticism for this. But go ahead.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I wanted to see what you both
guys ready?
Fine Second Amendment attorneys think of this. All right, here we go.
And in his meeting with New York Mayor Eric Adams, the president is expected to touch on the spike in gun violence across the country. At least 9 major cities have broken homicide records in the last year. In New York, thousands of police officers lined the streets paying tribute to one of their own who was shot and killed. And in Virginia, the community at Bridgewater College is remembering 2 campus police officers shot and killed on Tuesday. Also, Little Rock, Arkansas, the city declared violent crime a public health emergency after at least 10 people were injured in shootings this past weekend. Former NYPD Chief of Detectives and ABC News contributor Robert Boyce is here now with a little bit more on this. Chief Boyce, thanks for joining me. What do you want to hear today from President Biden as he sort of opens up a little bit about his strategy to combat gun violence?
Good morning, Diane. It's good to be with you. What we want to hear, and importantly, Merrick Garland is coming with him, is we need federal resources. We need partnerships to combat this thing. We've been dealing with the iron pipeline now for decades. With really, it's just ramping up more than ever now. The nation is awash in shooting incidents, high profile, innocent people being shot. We need help here. We're up 32% in shootings so far this year. And here's a big statistic as well. 6 police officers shot so far this year in New York City. We're a little over a month into it. 6 were murdered. I'm sorry, 2 were murdered. This is how bad it was. It is. So we're looking for some federal help, some legislation, key to stopping those out-of-state firearms coming into New York City. And there's some things they can do. But most importantly, we need federal partnerships to combat this.
Now, as a former NYPD Chief of Detectives, what was your reaction when you heard about the deaths of officers Mora and Rivera who were killed in the line of duty?
It breaks your heart. And all those things that you've experienced in your career come flooding back to you. So these officers were just wonderful men, young men, cut down in the prime of life. Never should have happened by a stolen gun from Baltimore coming up into New York City. What the feds can do is make interstate transportation of stolen firearms in New York a federal crime. We need this. In the honor of these 2 officers, and they were great people.
Oh my God!
Exactly what we want in New York City. Children of New York City going
Come on,
this
is ridiculous.
I mean, isn't that already illegal?
It's ridiculous.
I'm not a lawyer, but
we need a law that says that you can't steal a gun and go kill somebody with it.
Right.
From a state that already has some of the most restrictive laws in the entire country. This guy's gonna be kidding me.
Yeah, they just want more laws that aren't going to be followed. That's kind of the trend, right?
Rich, let's go through this play by play.
And then he gets into the next part where
very high. Rich, your blood sugar was low earlier. My blood pressure was high. We were in the courthouse, and Rich said, "It's just my blood sugar is low." And I was like, I didn't know what to do. I felt like an idiot. I was like, "Did I give you the Heimlich maneuver?" He's like, "No."
No, that's mouth to mouth.
He's like, "I'll make it work."
I did. I was like, "What exactly is that going to do?" I'm not choking on anything.
Step away, everybody. My buddy's in trouble.
Right.
Was he choking? No.
He's like, get him off of me. Get him off of me.
Some orange juice.
So he said that somebody stole a gun from Maryland, brought it into New York, and murdered somebody. And he wants a law that's going to stop that from happening, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean,
because it's not illegal to steal a gun in one of the states that has the most oppressive gun laws on the planet to begin with, and bring it back to a place where possession of firearms is illegal, and murder somebody with it. None of that's illegal as it
Maybe
is.
the criminals just don't know,
They don't. They have to raise awareness.
It's like an education campaign, maybe.
They have to go to one of our gun law seminars, right, Rich?
Right.
If they would,
there you go. You can't do that.
Yeah.
You would say, "Oh, that's against the law." I'm sorry.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
So, Rich, so multiple issues here, right? Let's talk about interstate transfer of firearms to start out with. Can you transfer a handgun among states without going through an FFL?
No.
No. And if it's a handgun, you have to receive it from an FFL in your home state, correct?
Yeah.
Just for clarification, though, when you say no, do you mean no or no?
You mean that's
No.
already illegal?
No.
And then with any transfer that takes place through an FFL, so long guns, you don't have to be an FFL in your home state, but it has to be through an FFL if it's interstate to begin with. The FFL has to comply with the laws of your home state. So are New York's own laws inadequate, right? No, there's just not a law that's going to stop somebody from stealing a gun out of state, driving it back to a state where it's unlawful to possess, and murdering somebody with that gun.
That's correct.
Is that fair to say, Rich?
That's fair to say.
Is there any kind of legislation? I can't even imagine what his legislation would look like to prevent that.
No, there's no law that you can do to prevent that.
He's said something about interstate transportation, making that a crime, to transport a gun. Now, that would be an issue for a lot of law-abiding gun owners, wouldn't it, Rich?
Well, you'd have to craft it. Yeah, it could, but you should have to craft it in such a way that protects law-abiding gun owners. But at the same time, I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily a solution. You can't prevent something like that wholeheartedly. It's gonna, unfortunately, those tragic incidents happen.
Mm-hmm. They broke a million laws, right?
The only way you can prevent it is banning of firearms, but the Second Amendment doesn't allow you to do that. So, I mean, it's an unfortunate situation. I have nothing but sympathy and empathy, but there's laws that prevent or make illegal everything that individual did already, and it still happened.
Sure.
So,
right.
There was a little more to that clip if you want to.
All right.
Play the rest, Russ. But
I just couldn't take it anymore. I had it.
Yeah. I think Russ pulled it down.
I can't believe that Knucklehead said that on the air, though.
I thought you guys would.
Aren't you embarrassed?
Apparently,
did he watch that back and say, "Yeah, I did a good job"?
He's trying to protect his people. He's a former retired NYPD detective, so I get where he's coming from.
Yeah, but that's a stupid solution. That's like saying, okay, we're going to give everybody these balloon hats to wear, and that's going to protect them. Right? We want to make a new law that everybody's going to wear these balloon hats, and that'll stop this from happening ever again. It's like, well, his heart might be in the right place, and he's trying to protect people. Maybe he thinks that balloon hats are going to stop.
I think there's already a mandate against that somewhere.
You can't wear balloon hats?
No, not certain cities.
Russ, we pulling this up?
Which one are we doing? I walked away to cut my pizza.
Oh, well,
the rest of the clip.
The rest of the clip. I think you took it down.
Interesting fact, that newscaster who was on Liberty used to perform in a band with her.
Oh, is that right?
Totally unknown.
Really?
She didn't realize that this was going to be on. She just put in the chat that she was in a band with her.
Hey now, Liberty. Shout out to Liberty.
Ready?
Yeah.
Here we go.
All right.
And doing a great job for us. So it breaks your heart. I've been there before, and it's painful each time, Diane.
Wilbert Moore's sister also said, how many more officers will have to lose their lives for this system to change? What is it about the system that you think needs to change or that is allowing this to happen right now?
Sure, I know what she's talking about, and she's exactly correct. Gun violence, people are being arrested for gun possession, illegal gun possession, put it right back out in the street. We see a prime example of that in the Bronx. The same day we're preparing for a funeral, they let a shooter out, a judge on bail, which he paid for, out back on the street, a gang member in the Bronx, 16 years old, putting him back in that environment that got him to be arrested twice for guns already. It's just a cycle that we can't have. It's exacting a lot of violence in the city. It needs to change. So prosecutors, when you have someone in possession of a gun, you can't put them back in the community without any crime, without any punishment at all. That's what's happening.
All right. Former NYPD Chief of Detectives.
Okay. This might be the most frustrating thing I listen to on TV on a daily basis, where somebody's arrested for a crime. They're let right out on the street. Why are we doing this? Okay. We're on a very pro-Constitution show, right? Mm-hmm. So what does the Constitution presume for anybody who's arrested for a crime? That they're what? Innocent, right? They're not, oh, he was picked up. He was arrested for gun possession. Did he have a gun? I don't know. Has a jury found him guilty? I don't know. We let people out back on the street. Why? Because they're innocent. If they meet the bail conditions and they release them on the street, doesn't make the judge a bad person, doesn't make him not tough on crime. He hasn't done anything wrong yet. Now, jury convicts him. He kills somebody, you let him back on the street, then I'll listen to you. That's a problem. But we got to stop this bail nonsense. They need to be locked up forever. They haven't done anything wrong yet. And from a defense attorney perspective, that drives me insane. You know, he's possessed on a gun. He needs to be locked up. Well, what if he wasn't in possession of the gun? What if he spends 10 months in jail because, God forbid, he gets out on bail and he's acquitted? What are you going to do for the 10 months he was spent in jail? You're going to pay him? No, they're going to be like, I'm sorry. I apologize. We got the wrong guy. Good luck with the rest of your life. I don't know what to tell you. You had a family, a career, a job. We just threw away the key. Good luck. So the frustrating thing when I see those clips about we're letting people right out on the street, it's disingenuous because they're missing the point. And all these people who get on talk about the Constitution, we love the Constitution, blah, blah. No, you don't. You love certain parts and you ignore the rest of them, which frustrates me. And I would go on for the rest of your show, Mike, but I'll just get more angry because those people frustrate me to death.
Right. No, that's a really interesting perspective. Thanks, Rich. That's
Anytime we have a bail hearing and they're saying, well, Your Honor, they did this, this, and this. And I was like, allegedly. Right? Isn't there a reason we have this whole process thing, right?
Trust me, I have banged on desks at bail hearings. Go, he hasn't been convicted. Well, I don't hear well. I don't hear well. I don't want to hear that. Is there a conviction? Was there a jury that I missed in the 20 minutes convict my guy that I've been sitting here? No. Did the judge say he was guilty? No. My guy's innocent.
I remember this one time years ago. Rich, you and I had to have been in practice a few months, and we got put on this bail hearing for this major, major gun case.
Right, I do.
And we were at the DJ's office after hours. I think it was like 7 o'clock at night. And you and I sitting there, we're like putting our notes together, we're talking. We're like, all right, you know, bail's not to punish. We're like going through the arguments and everything like that. And we got in there, and we hardly got a word out. And judge like $1 million straight cash. Boom. We're like, oh, geez.
How'd that go? Well, that went about as well as it could, thank you.
And I remember that the bail bondsman showed up because he's like, you know, this guy, he's sort of a repeat customer, and, you know, I'm good for it. And we went out and was like, yeah, he said $1 million, and the guy got in his car and left. He was like, yeah, I can't help him with that.
Okay.
I got to go.
It doesn't go that high, my friend. You might have a lot of goodwill around here, but not that much.
Yeah.
But that's absolutely true. Like, so suppose that there's a guy who ends up in New Jersey, right? A straight possessory offense. Because this guy's talking about guns. He clearly doesn't like guns, period, right? He's trying to make all these more restrictive laws. Clear.
He said you should be back out in the street if you're caught possessing a handgun. Okay.
Right. So if you're somebody who ends up in New Jersey mistakenly or whatever the case may be, and you haven't harmed anybody, but you are possessing a firearm in violation of their laws, do we all agree that they should be, you know, kept while the case is pending and not allowed out of jail? I wouldn't think that people would think that's a good idea. And in New Jersey, they've got bail reform, so it's either bail or no bail. It's either you're in or you're out. That's it. It's not like they allow you to put some money down as collateral or anything like that. You're in or you're out.
Right.
And my experience has been that if it involves firearms, you could have a spotless record and you're not leaving. You're in.
Yeah.
So that hurts a lot of people in that respect. I don't know which is better, Rich, the in or out or the monetary system.
Well, I think
it's all or nothing, right?
It's all or nothing for the in or out, which I don't like. I kind of prefer the monetary system. I think it gives judges discretion and allows them some measure of security that people have to put up some kind of cash. And, that makes sure that they show up. I mean, the idea of bail primarily is to make sure people show up to court. That's literally what bail's there for. Make sure when I say August 9th at 10 a.m., your butt is in the chair August 9th at 10 a.m. Right? That's really the idea of bail. They have put in protection for the community, which we certainly argue on a broad scale. And they're like, well, he was accused of X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, he was accused, but how do you protect the community from something that legally hasn't happened yet? You haven't convicted him of anything. And I think Pennsylvania's system, for the most part, in my experience, except for, although $1 million in that particular case may have actually been appropriate. Don't tell him I said that was. but what I will say is I think the Pennsylvania system, for the most part, I think has done a good job, because I've been involved in very minor cases. I've also been involved in very, very serious cases. And I think in both respects, it does what it's supposed to do.
So why don't we explain the different types of bail so people understand if they're unfamiliar, right? The lowest level, you've got ROR.
ROR, released on your own recognizance. Usually that's reserved for minor crimes. It becomes less and less prevalent depending on some people who set bail won't do that. It's just basically, I promise to show up, right? Okay, great, you're good.
Pinky swear.
Yep. So what is probably most prevalent, Mike and I run into, is what they call unsecured bail. So unsecured bail is the judge sets an amount, $10, $15, $20,000, but unsecures it, which basically means as long as you show up, stay out of trouble, you never have to pay that money. However, if for whatever reason you fail to show up at court or you get charged with another crime, you owe that amount of money to get out of bail, to get out of jail on bail. You'd have to pay 15, 20, 30, whatever the case may be. And then there is monetary bail, and that's usually reserved for more serious cases where they set an amount and you'd have to pay that amount to get out. There's usually a series of conditions. There's usually pretrial services in most counties. It can be hooked up to an ankle monitor, continuously checking in. So I think there's a far cry, and I think those degrees are missed. Well, because it's a news program. You're going to give me, well, he's in or he's out. Well, he's out, but he's on an ankle monitor. He's 24 hours. He's got to check in. And a violation of the bail conditions can land your butt back into jail. And I think being able to do things like that really puts a situation where you can protect the community as a whole, but at the same time, make sure we don't have innocent people or presumed innocent people sitting in jail who ultimately may be found not guilty. Right. Because you don't get that time back. And that's always frustrating for me.
We had a no bail case. We had no bail case.
Yeah, there is two kinds of no bail cases. If the punishment is death, a capital case, or the punishment is life in prison without the possibility of parole. So if you're charged with murder in the first degree in Pennsylvania or capital murder, there is no right to bail whatsoever.
Wait, haven't you seen a case where a judge issued no bail?
Yes. So there is a very slim thing in the Pennsylvania Constitution where it says you can deny bail if no set of conditions would be reasonable enough to protect the, quote, community or the victim in a case. And there is a case that we've had where bail was denied, which I've never seen in this kind of case before. And the interesting thing is I talked to the district attorney sometime trying to provide some information. He was like, what? He's like, no, he can't deny bail. I'm like, listen, telling you, I'm not making this up, guy. He's like, no, we got to get bail set on that guy. That's not allowed. What? So, and then it was a case with a victim. They're like, well, no contact orders. I'm like, that seems reasonable to protect it. And if he has contact with the particular victim and what was that case, I go, well, then obviously you then set a monetary amount, or then you could deny him because we said don't go near this person and you went near this person. So, I mean, the advocates, when I hear it on TV that they're letting everybody out of jail who's just simply arrested, are the first people who jump up and down about violations of the Constitution, but then seemingly forget that there's more than just the one right that they care about.
Can I do a no contact order for Russ?
Judge Rich, you letting him have it?
Can you do that, Judge
Make
Rich?
an allegation if it were true that he assaulted you, and one of the bail conditions would certainly be.
Well, he certainly heard me with his words.
There you go.
Jeremy says, wow, they must have really loosened the gun laws in New York for there to be such a spike in gun crime. And that's a good point. What I was going to say is he's talking about how we need this change. We need a federal law restricting transportation of firearms because we had this spike in the last year. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. Did they change the federal laws within the last year? Like, what has changed? How have gun laws become more favorable in the last year that you're blaming this spike in crime on that?
I think you're allowed to travel across state lines and murder people now, or something. Something like that.
That just went into effect last year.
There's a lot of confusion.
I know. I had half my clients just drop off my client roll. They're like, yeah, I know I crossed state lines and killed that guy, but it's not a crime anymore. Sorry, Rich. Don't need your services anymore. I said, yeah, good luck on your part.
We have to find a new area of practice, Rich.
Right.
Maybe bankruptcy law or something.
Yeah. Defense stuff ain't working out no more.
I mean, as long as you're wearing a mask, it really doesn't matter what you do.
Right.
So.
Scott has one for you, Rich. Give Scott a hey now.
Hey now, Scott.
Hey now, Scott. Hey now.
Scott says, how about drafting more laws with severe penalties against the people who do such illegal gun activities? I've yet to hear that as a solution.
Well, that's certainly a way to go, but here's what I'll tell. Sometimes, the good intentions can go awry, and I'll give you an example from our friendly neighborhood state, New Jersey. So illegal gun possession in New Jersey, mandatory minimum for handgun is 3.5 years, 18 months per round if you have hollow point rounds. Now, whether you're engaged in criminal activity or, as Mike said, say you forget you have the firearm in the car and you work in New Jersey and you drive over there, really have no idea it's in there, get pulled over for whatever reason, your stuff, and you left it in the glove box, falls out. Guess what? You are now facing 3.5 years, and say you get 10 rounds in a magazine, that's 180 months there. You're there for a long time. So I think when you do severe penalties like that, sometimes what it is I think you got to take in consideration the whole of a person. And those are minimum sentences where the judge has no discretion. And that person was gone for 15 years for literally making an honest mistake.
Mm.
Yeah. It's certainly a double-edged sword. I don't think people really understand, Rich, how many innocent people are charged with crimes, whether you're innocent because what you did does not fit the elements of that particular crime, or whether you were justified, or you simply didn't do something you're being accused of. I don't think that people realize how often this happens, but you and I deal with it on a daily basis.
Well, the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office has a conviction integrity unit because, going back to our third lost justice brothers, he worked at the Innocence Project, and they turned over convictions. The literal first case I ever seriously got involved in at the firm I was at when I first started was an individual by the name of James Hugney. He, at that point, had been in jail longer than I had been on the earth.
Wow.
He was sent to jail 1978, and I'm not going to say when I was born, but it was after that. long time after that.
Did you say 1878?
Jail longer than I had been on the earth. And you know what? What happened wasn't a crime. It was an accidental fire. He was convicted and spent all that time in prison. Right? And false convictions have all the time. We have 6 eyewitnesses. Eyewitness testimony is the most unreliable testimony on the planet.
Yeah.
Right.
The most unreliable testimony. We had 6 witnesses. Well, DNA says the guy was over here and not even over there. Oh. And that's the problem. I don't think people realize just how easy it is to convict an innocent person. And it happens all the time. The Innocence Project literally exists in every state in the country, and it wouldn't exist if they weren't continuously finding innocent people who were wrongfully convicted, because you wouldn't have an Innocent Project. It's like, we got nobody. What do we do?
We're out of business.
I don't know how those people don't go crazy. It's got to be insane to be locked up that way.
Dude, I will tell you this about Hugney, though. How is he? Have you heard anything about him lately? I saw him in the courthouse a couple of years back.
Oh, he did? Yeah.
Yeah. He looked great, It was good to see him on the outside.
It was.
I could tell you something about that guy, and I didn't know him nearly as long as Rich did, because I was at the firm for a shorter period of time, but I was there with Rich the day that
we
got him out. And I had to write that memo on the Alford plea.
Yep.
That was my involvement with it. Explain to him the Alford plea and deal with that. I think it was Judge Clark who ended up doing the hearing. Do you remember?
It would have been. What is Judge Clark? I think it might have been.
I don't know.
Might have been a president judge at the time.
Gotcha.
But it was good. We did it by first video hearing, I guess I could say I ever did. Actually.
Right. Yeah.
We did it by video. We were in the prison. And it went on so long as I was a law clerk at the firm. And then by the time he was released, I was an actual attorney. Mm-hmm. So it was that's how long of a fight that was. And the district attorney's office does not like to say we convicted the wrong person.
Right.
Crazy.
So they allowed him to enter an Alford plea, which is you factually state your innocence, but you plead guilty. It's for practical purposes.
Practical purposes, right.
And it was a plea to time served, I guess, right?
Time served, right. So he had been.
So he got out that day.
Got out that day.
And he had such a good attitude, that dude. He was cracking jokes in there and everything.
I know, despite
really?
how long he'd been in, and then, you know.
You get some sort of settlement for that? Like,
no, there's no.
No,
that's
really?
not the other problem with innocence. Most of the time,
that's crazy.
No.
It's crazy.
You know.
And in states where you can, they're statutorily capped, so you can only get X amount of dollars, and that's it. You know.
Yeah. What a great thing to put a cap on. Yeah, let's cap that.
You know, so yeah, I think that feeds into my frustration when it comes to those individuals. Like, they let everybody out. Well, it's on bail. He hasn't been convicted of anything yet. My guy was convicted, and he sentences them. Right, I can understand. He says, listen, this guy just got convicted of double homicide. He got a year probation. Like, all right, well, we're on the same page. That's a little ridiculous. Right, but, I mean, when you say somebody's been arrested for whatever the crime is, and he gets out on bail, that's ridiculous. I want to chuck something at somebody. That just angers me. Yeah.
Well, I think part of it is they're lowering the bails quite a bit. It's, compared to where they used to be. Maybe that's part of the issue.
We got to bring Chris to court with us, right?
I'm coming.
What should we say to get this low bail you speak of? What are these magic words again?
Yeah. You're served, Your Honor.
It's yeah. The reason that irritates me when people say this all the time, it's like, what we do is not easy. We have to go in there. We got to fight for every single inch. We are treated like we're at a disadvantage from the outset. So when people seem to think that we live in a world right now where it's all willy-nilly and all the criminals just go free, and that's how the criminal justice system is working. And it's like, no, we're living this stuff. Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in Mike G in the morning history. That's what happens when you're doing a live show. It's all good.
We're living this day in and day out. That's the first time. How many years have I been doing television and radio?
Impressive. We'll have to pull that clip for next week.
We're living this stuff.
It's after the first hour, so it doesn't matter.
No, it does. It does. I don't, because people's children listen to this program.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't think it came out all the way. I think I cut it off.
No, it didn't. It wasn't a complete.
But we're living this stuff, and we're in the trenches, and we're fighting for these people's lives, and it takes a whole lot. It takes every bit of our energy when we go in there, every bit of our focus.
Yeah.
And it's not something that's easy. So that's why I get frustrated when I hear people say things like that, because they're not in there.
Right.
Scott Frey says
Scott made me laugh. I'm sorry, I was looking at
Yeah, you're talking about Adam Schiff.
As an Adam Schiff, that's right.
Good recovery, Scott. Shout out to Scott, ladies and gentlemen. Scott.
Oh, Eric wants a hey now. Give him a hey now.
Hey now, Eric. Hey now.
Eric, a hey now.
Hey now, Eric.
Yeah, that builds my frustration when I see them on TV. I get infuriated.
Yeah.
And then I hear that, and it's funny because it was a DA in a county, like, they're just letting everybody out. I go, have you walked outside this courthouse yet?
Yeah.
Like, do you even know what you're talking about? We practice differently here. Like,
yeah. Okay.
No, you don't. You're it's the same everywhere.
Got their own rules.
I'm gonna beat you down like I beat them down. So you'll learn how I practice everywhere.
Stax Farm says he's calling it a night, so give him a hey now, Chris.
Hey now, Stax. Good night and good evening.
Have a good night. Catch the rest tomorrow.
Get some good rest.
I hope that when I cursed that it was
that was it. He's like, I'm out. Peace.
Cursed. He's like, you know
Peace
what?
out.
I'm done with this guy. I'll tell you. What about Hugney though? When he got out, first of all, he's cracking jokes when we're in there. He tells me, "I need you to fill out an ID 10T form for me." You ever hear this?
What's that?
Yeah, I don't think I know this story, Mike.
What's the form?
Do you know what that is, Rich?
No.
All right, I need you to fill out an ID 10T form for me. Do you have a paper there?
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
So write it down at the top. ID 10T.
Am I gonna look like a funny? This guy's gonna be funny.
Do you write the number 10 or do you write out TEN? Like
the number 10.
Okay.
ID 10. Oh, you're in it. All right.
show them the face. Show it.
You want me to show it on my little
ID 10? Nice. That's good.
He got me too, Rich.
That was great.
I almost said it out loud. I was like, "Oh, I'm an idiot."
The old ID 10T trick.
So then when he gets out, we waited there forever, and it's like snowing when he gets. It was waiting. It was like a movie.
I worked on that case for years, and Mike had worked on it for at least a year when he started. I'm like, I'm not leaving. There's not a chance I'm leaving until he walks out the front door.
Dark out. He comes out. He gives everybody hugs, and he says, "I got to try to find a church that's open. I want to go say a prayer."
Oh, wow.
What an attitude on that guy. I mean, that guy had every reason in the world to be the most bitter, miserable human being on the planet and have no faith in anything, right? And for him to come out and have that attitude, that's amazing.
How long ago was this? When did he get out?
2014?
2014, 15. Yeah.
And how long was he in? It was a while, you said?
Yeah, till then.
Wow.
1978.
That's insane. He should write a book. He could probably write a book.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. And it happened. It was just that they classified the fire at his home as an arson, and
based on faulty science.
Faulty science, right? Which they had an expert come in and say, "This is what it is. These are pour marks. There was multiple ignition points.
It wasn't Dr. Fauci, was it?
This could happen is arson." And we got an expert said that's insane. Those are airflows when the window is open. And the interesting thing about multiple ignition points, which is faulty science, is what you need to understand is when you have what they call a flashover fire, right? So, for example, you put a piece of cloth in your oven, set it to broil. Not going to touch a flame, not going to touch the element, nothing. It's eventually going to catch on fire.
Yeah,
that's an ignition point.
Yeah,
because it's so hot in the oven at a point it starts. And a flashover fire, if you have a room that's pretty decently sealed off, nothing for the heat to escape, it gets so hot in the room, fire may start in the corner. But what do you have in a lot of bedrooms? A mattress, which if anybody's ever watched a video on YouTube, a mattress burning, that thing goes in about a second and a half.
Yeah.
So the issue is there's multiple ignition points. One was on the chair, one was on the mattress. And they said, well, that's evidence that he started a fire on the chair and the mattress. Well, our expert said, no, look at the pour marks, look at this, look at the air filtration. What happened is the fire in this room got so hot, the bed started on fire, the chair started on fire. Not multiple. It is multiple ignition points, but not due to him starting it, just the nature of the fire.
Crazy.
And refute everything. So, I mean, the issue is people are like, well, these are certain cases with eyewitnesses and faulty stuff. Well, this case that we worked on had definitive scientific evidence that this was arson, not arson.
Believe the science, Rich. You got to believe the science.
So, I mean, what happens there is, and it might be still is one of my proudest accomplishments.
That's awesome.
I've been a lawyer for about 15 minutes at that point.
That's great.
Remember we worked that arson case and you're talking about mattresses being set on fire. We worked this one arson case, and the information that we were receiving was that, a couple of the curtains were kind of singed and everything, and we didn't realize the DA was giving us such a hard time. We were really fighting on this thing, and we're not entitled to discovery until after the preliminary hearing. That's another thing that people don't understand if they're not involved in the criminal justice system. They're like, well, where's these tapes and where's all this evidence? You don't get that until after the preliminary hearing. You're not entitled to it. So we're not going to have all this at our disposal right now. And we get the picture, and the mattress looks like a piece of toast. It's like, Wasn't what I was expecting.
Yeah, no, those are interesting pictures. You're like, well, that's not that was not how it was described to me. Okay. Let me rethink my strategy on this one.
Right.
I got a sick sense of humor, but I always think about what if you have this guy who he's been in prison for all these years and seems like such a great guy and work hard, and you get him out, and ultimately, you know, he comes out and he's on the steps and he was accused of this horrible, heinous crime, and we were able to prove his innocence in court and get him out after all these years. And he comes out, walks down the steps, and turns around and looks at the prison and goes, "Of course I did it. Joke's on you, fellas."
Did he really?
No, I'm just saying. I'm saying.
Right.
That's something that always crosses my mind. Like, what if something like that happened?
Right. It's like a scene out of a movie or something. Yeah, right. I got
I'd find myself to be a very good attorney if I proved his innocence and he wasn't really innocent. I'd be like, well,
yeah.
better than I even thought.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that happens.
Got away with it.
Mm-hmm.
That obviously doesn't really happen, but.
Yeah.
Len Larson says, "Hello, everyone. Give a hey now to the three Lens."
Hey now, Len Larson coming at you live.
Len, and Len.
Len.
For those of us just tuning in, you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. Is there anything else that we need to discuss, Rich? Because I know we had a bunch of things that were potentially up for discussion. I know it's quarter after, and I don't know. Do you guys still get ice cream in February?
Time. I think there might have been some disagreement between the Justice brothers on a certain aspect, and I was interested to talk about that. But we would go till 10 o'clock if we started talking about that. There was some potential disagreement.
Do you want to give them a little bit of a preview?
I want to hear this.
So
Do it.
This has to do with the case dealing with mail-in voting, right? There's a case in the Commonwealth Court fairly recently, and ultimately, the Commonwealth Court held that the no excuse absentee mail-in voting was unconstitutional. And I'm sure that a lot of people are automatically going to say, yes, of course it is, without understanding why. We got to run through all of the different issues here. And there's a lot to discuss. First of all, we can both agree that this is going to be a legal discussion and not a policy discussion. So it's not whether or not we think that mail-in voting is a good idea. Agreed?
Agreed.
We're just setting the rules out here.
We're setting rules.
Yeah.
Okay.
No zip guns, only chains.
How about ghost guns?
So we're not discussing the policy and whether we think mail-in voting is a good idea. So that's that. Second thing is I think that we can both agree that the Republicans look like a bunch of dopes in this, because some of the same legislators that passed this law, right, that wanted this law to go into effect, that supported this law and are responsible for this law, then turned around and said, oh, no, that law is actually unconstitutional, and sued in court over it. We can agree that they look like a bunch of major dopes for that, right?
Yeah. Hypocrites, right?
Yeah, it was almost unanimous when it passed.
Right. And we can agree that the optics on that are terrible because there's a big loss in an election very recently, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Using this system, we'll call it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very easy for people to reasonably conclude that this is just sour grapes and they're just upset because it didn't go their way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay, so we're on the same page about all of that.
On the same page, ladies and gentlemen.
Then there's a couple of other issues where we may or may not be on the same page. Haven't discussed it, don't know about it. One of them was the standing issue, as to whether. Did you look at this at all?
I didn't focus in on that part of the opinion.
Okay, so the defendant ultimately.
The Commonwealth Court was actually unanimous for that he had standing, but.
That's right. Yeah.
It was unanimous. He had standing to whoever brought the suit.
Yeah, but they argued that he didn't have standing. I think that argument's pretty ridiculous.
You had to challenge it within a certain period of time or else, have a nice day.
So there's two things about it. There's the standing, as far as did this person have a substantial interest as an elected official on the board, right?
I'll be right back. My emergency hotline's going. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay.
Standing is something that I've dealt with quite a bit, particularly in the city of Harrisburg case, right? You remember that, Rich?
Right.
That case
they
all
had
came
a
down to
specific
standing.
law, and that granted standing in that case, and then the law was declared unconstitutional because of how it was passed. It wasn't anything about the law itself. It's just they violated a rule under the Pennsylvania Constitution, and ultimately there was no case or controversy because the group that we represent, or you represented, had no standing at that point.
Because they hadn't been cited or anything like that.
Right.
Now, there is some subsequent case law that gets in there as to you don't have to be cited or anything like that.
Right, which is to stop municipalities from just having these law in the books and then nobody ever getting cited, because typically you need a case or controversy. So if you never get cited, there's nothing to complain about because it's not affecting your ability, right? Because you've never been punished for violating the law. But yeah, and I thought that was a good decision by the court, because then that's what places would do. No gun in the park. People walk around with a gun in the park. Nobody cites them. What are you going to do? Right.
But then you have a lot of other people who won't do it because they
carry, and that's the reason. That's why there is, and I think that's a correct decision, because then people who are law-abiding or want to comply with the law won't carry in a park based on this illegal law.
They said an interest is substantial if the party's interest surpasses the common interest of all citizens in procuring obedience to the law. Right? Government's got to follow the law. They also talk about how, as a member of the Bradford County Board of Elections, very few people, if he doesn't have standing, nobody's got standing because of his involvement with everything.
Right.
So that's another thing. So it sounds like we agree on standing.
Yeah, I got no issue with the standing.
So then there's the issue of latches. And both of these arguments are, I don't want to call them, like it's technical arguments as to why they don't belong in court in the first place, and they shouldn't reach the
merits of the issue.
Right. So the second one was latches. You familiar with this argument that they made, or?
Yeah.
It's basically they waited too long, and as a result, they're prejudiced. Now, the court distinguished this case from the Kelly case that was filed after the election. Do you remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
And that case, I believe it was the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, held that latches did apply.
Right.
Because to get involved now,
after the election is over.
After the election, and after so many people relied on it, right?
Right.
There were people who voted thinking this is perfectly fine.
Right.
If you're going to discount all of those votes, when those people had no reason to know that
it was going to be right. They went into election day with a valid law that was not challenged, was not subject to court. Lawsuit wasn't even filed by election day to try to challenge that law. So they went on good faith. You can't now throw everything out.
Right. So they said this case is not like that because we're talking about future elections.
Yep.
It's time. And there's a difference between a statute of limitations and latches. I don't think that people recognize
statute of
that
limitations is some injury happens, you have so long to complain about it. Latches basically means that you waited too long to complain. It's a difference. There is a difference to it.
Well, latches is equitable too, right?
Right.
It's more of a feel thing.
Yeah, no, it's tough to define. I think your example goes well. If you file a complaint after the election's over and say this is an unconstitutional law, throw out, say 100 million ballots, there wasn't, but millions of ballots based on a law that was unconstitutional. Well, people relied on it and they voted that way. You can't go after the fact and now throw it out. You have to complain before you're too late. It would be unfair to all those millions of people who relied on it to now not count those votes.
So I think one of the differences that you have to realize from the outside looking in is that there's no bright line rule, right? So with the statute of limitations, it's okay, the statute is 2 years. If you don't bring this action within 2 years from when you had reason to know, right? Reasonable due diligence. So that's another thing that comes into play with the statute of limitations, the discovery rule.
Yeah.
When should you have reasonably known about the cause of action?
Right.
So the court found that didn't apply, and we're on the same page with that. We agree on that?
Yeah.
Okay. So this really, I think, a nitpicky, very fine, particular disagreement that we have.
Yes.
I think we're seeing how specific our disagreement is.
Yeah.
And much like most things, we agree on 90% of it.
That's true. That is true.
And here's where we go differently. So ultimately, Act 77 is declared unconstitutional. And there are two schools of thought, one as to why it would be constitutional, and then one as to why it would not be constitutional. So do you want to place your position on the record, or?
I think Act 77 is constitutional under the Pennsylvania Constitution.
And why don't you talk a little bit about where you get that authority?
So I get that authority from the same position that the majority opinion found it unconstitutional, which is Article 7 of the Pennsylvania Constitution. Section 4 specifically says that all elections shall be by the citizens, shall be by ballot or such other method as may be prescribed by law. So the issue becomes is that the legislature got together, provided a mail-in ballot opportunity, and which people took advantage of, which is still a ballot. It's passed by the legislature, signed by the governor. That's another method prescribed by law.
So my position is that you're focusing on the wrong thing, right? What it says is that it shall be by ballot or by such other method as may be prescribed by law, meaning it could be by a ballot or some other way that's prescribed by the law, as long as it says provided that secrecy in voting be preserved. So, for example, you couldn't get everybody in the room say, all right, we're going to save a bunch of time this year. We're going to take in people 100 at a time, and we're going to bring them in here. Okay, who wants Trump? Raise your hand.
Right.
And who
the
doesn't?
way they did it before this particular constitutional provision was passed.
Right. So that wouldn't be allowed. Now, that would be another method, but it wouldn't be allowed.
Right, because it's specifically prohibited by the next section.
So if we go down further and we look at Section 14, absentee voting, it says the legislature shall, by general law, provide a manner in which and the time and place at which qualified electors who may, on the occurrence of any election, be absent from the municipality of their residence because of their duties, occupation, or business require them to be elsewhere, or who on the occurrence of any election are unable to attend at their proper polling places because of illness or physical disability, or who will not attend a polling place because of the observance of a religious holiday, or who cannot vote because of election day duties, in the case of a county employee, may vote and for the return and canvass of their votes in the election district in which they respectively reside. So this lays out very specific reasons, specific enumerated reasons for which absentee voting shall be allowed. And the way I'm reading this, unless you're in one of these categories, absentee voting is not constitutionally permitted. It's not an unlimited, no excuse sort of thing. It's if it's not in here, it's not allowed without constitutional amendment. And this is right in line with the case law that's been for roughly 100 years in the Lancaster case. You're familiar with that, right?
I am familiar with the Lancaster case, and I don't think that it says what you just said it says.
So what do you think it
Read
says?
the Lancaster case differently because it's talking about a specific circumstance in which it says, and is mail-in voting the way it's written absentee voting, or is it just another method to cast a ballot?
So, but I don't read section that you were discussing, section 4, as talking about the mechanism by which the ballot is cast. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
I see it as a distinction. The legislature can do ballot or another method, meaning can't be. We already said it's got to be preserved in secrecy.
Right.
But if you can conjure up some way, and as technology goes on, you're going to have these kinds of issues pop up where ballots aren't ballots. But a completely separate issue would be how you can cast that vote, right?
Okay.
So not the fact that it's a ballot or not a ballot, because as I see it, we are using ballots in the mail-in system, right?
Yeah.
They are mail-in ballots, so we're not getting into whether there's another method. It's still a ballot. I think how you can cast the ballot is a completely separate issue. Whether it's a ballot or otherwise, there's a specific mechanism by which you have to cast that ballot. And in order to do that as an absentee, you're not there. You have to fall into one of those specifically enumerated categories.
The Mail-in Ballot Act 77 as an absentee method, or just another method. So now we're arguing not only constitutionality, you got to interpret the statute itself. Because the statute itself provides no excuse mail-in voting, doesn't say absentee voting. It says no excuse mail-in voting. Mail it from your house, which complies that you live in the district for 60 days, then it's not absentee.
Okay. So that's a separate issue.
We got a whole bunch. That's why we got to organize this, because we're going to go back and forth. But I do not agree with the majority in the Commonwealth Court. I think the issue that you have is what they're doing is they're selectively reading out that provision. And the idea is you have to read the Constitution as a whole, right? You have to make the provisions work together. And otherwise, if you read it the way the majority suggests to read it, that or any other method is just superfluous. It's just there for no reason. And
I don't think it is, though. I don't think you can say that it's there for no reason based on the analysis that I just gave. I think that the position that I'm taking gives them both a reason. They both have a reason in being there. You have to
give me an example of another method that they could pass constitutionally that wouldn't require a constitutional amendment.
So something other than a ballot.
Yeah, so
I guess we'd have to get into also the definition of what a ballot is, right?
Well, yeah. Well, for example, you say, well, they had to amend the Constitution to allow voting machines. And I would assume that most people would say is another method, but any other method is a way to cast the ballot itself.
So a machine is a method that's prescribed by statute?
No, it's a method prescribed in the Constitution. They tried to. It was struck down. They amended Section 6 to allow machine voting.
Okay. So what's the definition of ballot then?
Well, is ballot defined in the Constitution? I don't know. I didn't go that far.
I feel like I'm stuck in the middle
No, I think it's a legitimate discussion because you could have an argument.
No, it is a legitimate discussion. I mean,
anybody in the comments is listening to this. Let's see.
I don't think anybody. They're like, oh no.
It all made perfect sense except the part where it made no sense.
Right. 90% of the time, it's right. I think the issue
is if we break it down legally, I think there's a sound argument. Well, we'll say ultimately it's going to be decided by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, but at this point,
Scott says, interesting listening to both law experts bring out details and thoughts how the wording of the law plays out. I hate mail-in balloting, but I see both your points. Thanks for the schooling.
All right. This is why we love Scott, right?
Somebody's going to have to make a decision one way or the other, right?
It's going to go to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, and ultimately they get to decide what the Pennsylvania Constitution means. So stay tuned, I guess, till next week.
Right.
But yeah, that's the way it goes.
So I guess we shall see.
We shall see.
We shall see. But we can have a more in-depth discussion when it's not 8:30. But Mike brought the topic up.
Maybe we should submit briefs. We'll submit briefs.
And we'll have an oral argument. We'll send him to Philly Chris. He'll review the briefs. We'll go back and forth next week. But no, Mike said it, and Mike was like, what? It's definitely unconstitutional. I said,
I got your back, Mike.
It's constitutional. I said, uh-oh. He's like, what? I'm like, what are you talking about?
Absolutely unconstitutional. There's only 4 specifically enumerated reasons. It's outside of those reasons. What are you talking about?
I was going to talk about the enumeration.
He's like, but another method. And it's like, no, you're missing the point.
Stick over here. I was like, no, you have to read that with this. So read it all together. You can't pick this and ignore that. What are you talking about?
Tough one.
But I will tell you that that's the reason Mike and I are pretty successful when it comes to legal arguments. Because even if this was an actual argument we were preparing for, and we've done this, and he's done this to me, I will present, here's our case, here's how we're going to argue it. I will spend 2 days picking apart his argument, even though I 110% agree with him, and that's why we're as good as we are, because you have to do that. We do legitimately disagree on this one, but even when we completely line up, we always pick each other's arguments apart. So yeah.
Well, you know why we wouldn't disagree on this one if we were working the case together?
Well, because we're representing a client.
We'd have a client.
We have a client. Yeah. It's like, so what if the members decide, hey, we heard this radio show, we want to hire Mike and Reese to say this law is unconstitutional. I'm like, this law is unconstitutional. So I don't know what we're talking about.
It is way unconstitutional.
It's not even close.
It's so unconstitutional, it's not even funny. No. You look up unconstitutional in the dictionary, this picture's next to it. It reminds me of that old joke where 3 guys go to heaven, and they're at the pearly gates, and there's a philosopher, and there's a mathematician, and there's an attorney. And they get to the pearly gates, and the gatekeeper says, I can let you into heaven as long as you can answer this simple question. He asks the mathematician, what's 1 plus 1? And he says 2. And he says, come on in. So we ask the philosopher, what's 1 plus 1? He says, well, I don't believe in putting finite things and everything, but for the purposes of this discussion, 1 plus 1 equals 2. And he says, let's him on in. So he comes over, and the attorney is the last guy there. And he says, what's 1 plus 1? The attorney looks around both directions, leans over on the table, and he goes, what do you want it to be?
There you go. There you have it.
You want me to argue it's 3? I'll come up with something, right?
Something.
Good deal. All right. We will let you go to Little Richard. I don't know if you guys do ice cream in February, but
no, there's definitely no ice cream in February.
You owe him something.
It's always a good time for ice cream.
Get him an IOU for ice cream.
IOU for ice cream?
Yeah.
I'll get him an IOU ice cream, all right?
Yep. Thanks for having me, guys. And we will continue this discussion, I promise, next week.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks, Rich.
Good. You guys have a great night, man. Have fun.
Good seeing you, brother.
All right. The great Richard Roberts, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rich Roberts live.
All right. For those of us just tuning in, you're listening to Mike G in the Morning with The Law Matters, only on the Freedom Station, WFYL. Really, Chris, why don't you go ahead and take over for a few minutes?
All righty. Sounds like a plan, brother. Let's see. Well, we got some clips in there. Maybe we can switch over to a clip. There was another clip that I was interested in playing for you guys, but maybe we can hold off on that until next time. But let's check out maybe clip number 2 there, Russ. The stuff that's going on up in Canada with the truck drivers.
All right, give me a sec.
Check that out. Yeah.
Looks like Mike disappeared on his video.
Oh, yeah? Did he? Did he disappear?
Do you
Next
not
time
see
you can
that?
leave it on. But, yeah, everybody's probably been following what's going on up in Canada there with the truck drivers protesting things. So let's check that out. We'll truckers are something different here. All right.
Okay, there's no timestamp, so I guess I'm just playing.
No, I just played. I don't think it was too long. Truck drivers
here
fighting
we go.
for
Prepare
freedom.
your ears.
All right, ready?
Or the heartbeat of the supply chain. They're how you get your groceries, you get your medications, your essential household items, and so much more. But now it appears big tech is silencing them and disrupting deliveries all because they say they are exercising their right to choose whether or not to get a vaccine. Perhaps you've been following these protests that have been happening, this convoy. Jeremy Johnson joining us in his rig in Missouri live now. And Brian Brace are two U.S. truckers and co-founders of the Convoy to D.C. 2022. Jeremy, we've all seen you there in your big rig, and thanks so much for joining us. Brian, it looks like you're snowed in. Tell me about that. Where are you? What happened?
I'm in Northwest Ohio, and we're under a winter storm warning and really didn't know how bad the roads were going to get. I'm fortunate enough to work for a small mom and pop company that we have some flexibility to be able to park trucks and avoid moving around in inclement weather like this, just as safe as we can be.
Absolutely. A big storm moving through major parts of the country, but it doesn't stop one of your main missions right now. So let's get right to it. And I'll start with Jeremy if I can. You're extending what is being dubbed as the rallying cry of Canadian truckers. They're protesting vaccine mandates. But big tech, Facebook specifically, silencing your message, Jeremy. If I'll start with you, what happened? Are they really silencing you? Did they take your Facebook page down?
Yeah, they did. Not only did they take our group Facebook, Convoy to DC 2022, but they wiped out numerous personal accounts and accused us of spreading propaganda associated with QAnon. The fact of the matter is we don't have anything posted about QAnon on any of our personal pages, and there might have been some comments made under some comments on the group that I can't control what other people comment. We can try to moderate the best we can, but when you have 130,000 people on there, it's pretty difficult to do, especially when you're trying to plan a freedom convoy all the way across the United States.
And Brian, hearing about that, this is a way to reach out on various platforms and to gather more people. Clearly, as Jeremy was sharing, that Facebook account being taken down, 100,000 followers there. I spoke with a trucker yesterday on the show, and he told me essentially this whole thing is about freedom. What is it about for you, Brian?
Well, the same thing, really. Our constitutional rights as Americans, of course, we believe that it's a violation of our constitutional rights as Americans. But on a human level, to me and to many people, I think across the country, across the globe, believe that it's a human rights violation. We're not anti-vax, we're not far right, far left, or none of that stuff that they trying to pin us or loop us in. We're just human beings that believe in our right to choose. If you want the vaccine, go get the vaccine. We encourage you. But people losing their jobs over their health care, over their personal health decisions, like I said, it's a violation of basic human rights, or as some would call it, your God-given rights, not just your constitutional rights. It's on the human scale.
GoFundMe recently froze a Freedom Convoy page. They were raising money for the truckers there. I believe they got to $10 million. Your thoughts on that before we go, Jeremy?
The censorship that we're witnessing worldwide is unbelievable. And as a matter of fact, I got in touch with human rights attorney Lee Dundas from the freedomfighternation.org. And she's very well aware of what's going on, and so are many other attorneys. And I am in talks with other attorneys, and we will be filing suit against some of these people that are trying to censor us.
All right, we'll leave it right there. Best to Jeremy Johnson, Brian Brace. Your time is well appreciated. Brian, best of luck, by the way, being snowed in. I hope you're able to get back out there on the roadways. I know you want to. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
There we have it. So yeah, interesting stuff going on up there in Canada with the truckers, and
so tell what exactly is going on.
Well, I believe it's happening in Ottawa, and I think several thousand truckers have positioned their rigs and cabs in different parts around the city to block things off, basically in protest against the the zucchini mandates that are going on up there. Trudeau even came out talking about it and going against what they're doing, but people are fed up with the tyrannical measures happening there and also here, of course. So they're trying to do something about it. I've heard too. One of the reasons I want to play this clip is that there may be something being organized here in the U.S. regarding the truck drivers doing something.
Dude, that's
similar.
the last thing we need right now.
I know, right?
6 months to get a bed and 4 months to get a couch and 3 months to get a desk.
Absolutely. No, and it's one of those roles like where truck drivers really don't get the respect they deserve because pretty much everything we use is shipped around the country in these trucks. Whether you buy something off Amazon or you go to the grocery store, it's being delivered to that location by these gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen who are driving big rigs across the country on these long haul journeys. And of course, they're clamping down on regulations regarding how many hours they can drive, and then now forcing them to get the zucchini. So at least they're standing up for freedom there in Canada, and we may see some of that here. But as you pointed out, Mike, it'll definitely put another wrinkle into the economy and deliveries and getting food and wrinkle.
I don't think that's going to be.
No, you're right. That's probably not a good word.
What are they dealing with over there? Have we seen the inside of stores and stuff like that, or?
I haven't seen too much recently, but yeah, it's definitely having an impact there in Ottawa. And I did see another video earlier. I don't have the link in here where they did.
Did they win though?
They're still doing it. They're hunkering down, and it's interesting because those rigs can run a long time, and they have, beds in there. They have food, and people are supplying them. So this could go on for a while. It'd be interesting to see what happens. But there was some police intervention today. I saw a video earlier where the police were trying to get them to move off of certain locations, but the truck drivers even surrounded the police. So it was kind of some sort of, confrontation between the protesters, the peaceful protesters and the police up there. So we'll see what happens next.
Do you guys remember that scene at the end of Smokey and the Bandit with all the trucks? I can't remember if it was the first film or the second one.
Oh, like the convoys and everything?
Yeah, the big convoy, and they did a circle around the police.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
While Bandit got away.
Bandit. Yeah, it was a good movie.
And then there was another scene where they all drove in between this large drop off and made a bridge for him, and he drove over the top of it, and then they moved so that the police couldn't catch him. It was great.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. There you go.
Classic.
Yep. Movies coming to reality, it seems.
Is there any danger associated with that? They're all lining up like that?
It's interesting how much they're
ambulances or anything.
Yeah, I think they're letting certain things through. They're trying not to disrupt things to the point where things like that would be interrupted. I would imagine, but yeah, I guess it's going to continue to escalate. We'll see what happens in the coming weeks and days, and whether or not it happens here. But just what we need right now. More supply chain issues, right?
Yeah. Do you think they're going to get worse either way?
I think so. I mean, things are looking pretty wild out there still. And, I've mentioned some things on the show in the past about my feelings and, where things are headed. And I think, unfortunately, it is going to continue to get worse. I don't see how it's going to get any better. I mean, at least more people are standing up to what's going on. For those of you who checked out the promotional video we had put together for tonight's program, I was in the city yesterday for a good part of the day and took some video footage and pictures of what I'm seeing down there.
Hold on. We have people who listen to this program who live in New York.
Right.
And when you say the city.
Sure. Center City, Philadelphia.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
But, a lot of the places you can't even go inside. You're not supposed to go in. You have to show your papers. You need to have the zucchini and, be following all these mandates that are still going on. There are some places that are protesting, some businesses that are not necessarily adhering to that stuff. I was able to go into a few establishments where they didn't ask for things. So it's good to see that some folks are standing up to it. But the vast majority of restaurants, especially restaurants right now, you have to show your paperwork at the door and have to have the mask on, even though the CDC has come out and revised their findings on that. And we've talked about that on the program for quite some time. So still no peer-reviewed studies showing their effectiveness when it comes to the COVID.
What?
Oh, thanks, DG. Thank you very much. Shout out to DG. So, but it's just continuing. Continues to unfold.
Yeah, that's the potato. What are you talking about?
Oh, the potato?
How did you forget about that?
What was the potato? What did I say?
The M word.
Oh, did I? Okay.
You can't say the M word.
Oh no.
The potato.
You can't say the S word either, Chris.
No. Yeah, you can't say that live on the air, right? Uh-oh. This is going to hurt. We got to pull that clip. We'll have to do something with that.
You know what my
They voted. Don't you remember they voted last week? And we voted as the potato?
The potato. Yeah, I forgot about that.
I don't even remember what any of that was.
Yeah, I don't know.
You must have a potato in order to enter the business.
That's right. You need a potato. Got to have the potato on.
Potato?
Yeah. Even if you have the zucchini, you still got to have a potato.
Yeah, well, apparently you got to double and triple up on that and get boosted and, have multiple potatoes on your face.
Hey, 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, 4.
Have some French fries, whatever you need, whatever to keep things at bay. There was a clip, though, I wanted to play for you, Mike, that dash cam footage of that road rage incident with the guy shooting in his car.
Oh, we should have Rich on for that.
I know. I did want to play a few more of the clips when he was on, but we let him go. But that's that number 4 clip there.
All right.
I wanted to ask you guys how you would handle this situation if this particular individual hired you to defend the situation, but I guess we can get the Mike G take on it. Okay. We'll get Russ to play that. Clip number 4. Go ahead, buddy.
I think we're missing a part of it, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
And right now, we're seeing dramatic new video from a shooting on I-95 that landed this driver behind bars. In that disturbing video, you can see the man behind the wheel pull out a gun and fire during morning rush hour. Local 10's Roy Ramos live now in North Miami with an update for us tonight. Roy?
Do we really need an update on this?
Calvin, and remarkably, no one was injured in any of this. Nearly a dozen shots fired. It all happened right here on the lanes of I-95. And the driver who opened fire says he did so because he thought he was being shot at. Chilling dash camera video obtained by talk show host Andy Slater showing the moments a road rage incident leads up to shots fired. You may remember when we first told you about the incident back in late June. 2 cars found riddled with bullets on the southbound lanes of I-95 near 135th Street. We've now learned the driver you are looking at is 30-year-old Eric Popper. Investigators with Florida Highway Patrol said he was driving this black Toyota Venza when he abruptly cut off another driver. That driver begins to tailgate him when he's then seen slamming on the brakes. Seconds later, state troopers say the driver pulls up to the passenger side and throws a water bottle at the vehicle when Popper quickly starts shooting right through his own windows. During the investigation, Popper told state troopers he believed he was shot at, so he began shooting. While surprisingly there were no reported injuries, Popper ultimately turned himself into Florida Highway Patrol, was arrested, and is now facing felony charges. And those charges include aggravated assault with a firearm. He has since bonded out of the Miami-Dade County Jail, but we are learning a little more about him. We've learned that he is a fire inspector. Right now, we're trying to find out what city he works for and if he is still employed. For now, here in North Miami, Roy Ramos, Local 10 News.
Wow. Wild stuff there, Michael. What's your take on that?
First of all, he had that firearm pretty seriously secured, huh? It looked like he had to go in and unlock something.
Yeah, I think he had
like
a
second safe
console,
or something
right?
like that.
Yeah,
no, but it looked like there was like a set. I don't know if he was using a key to open up once he flipped that open or something like that, or maybe a fingerprint. Maybe it was a biometric type thing.
That could be.
I don't think cars have that for the center for the armrest, Mike.
What's that?
I don't think cars have that for the armrest. The video. So I
He
saw
has
a
something
different
inside there. You can put a small safe inside of something that size.
Oh, okay. I guess that makes sense.
Sort of aftermarket addition to the vehicle.
Sure. Yeah. Gun guys do that stuff all the time.
Sure.
Matter of fact, a good buddy of mine.
He just changed the back seat into a safe.
In law school, a good buddy of mine who's pretty handy helped drill a holster on some brackets inside my vehicle.
Oh, okay.
So it was permanently affixed.
Nice.
For reasons, those kinds of reasons.
Right.
So what are we going to talk about? There's a lot to talk about, right?
Yeah. What are your thoughts on this?
One of the practical things that comes to mind, I bet that guy couldn't wait to show the police the footage because in his mind, this vindicates me. I got it all on tape.
Right.
I got it all on tape. I'll show it to you.
Yeah.
He's in there making statements like, oh, dude, You're making this really bad.
right. Making it worse.
Man,
Well,
that's
talk
how
about
you
like
ended
the
up in
reasonable
jail.
belief thing, maybe.
Right. So there's
Yeah.
a split second there. You have to understand that deadly force, and Brian Sitchko is the first person who I've heard explain it exactly this way, and I think it's great. It's like a pendulum on a grandfather clock, right?
Mm-hmm.
And throughout the entire incident, you might have certain points on that pendulum where you have a reasonable belief that deadly force is immediately necessary, but then it moves outside of that, and it might go back again, and it might go back out.
Right.
So timing is everything when it comes to whether deadly force is justified. We see so many cases where somebody shoots before deadly force is justified, meaning too early. Was enough at that point, enough objective circumstances to support a reasonable belief. But then you also have many cases where it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
They use deadly force after that reasonable belief has concluded.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
So if somebody's got a sledgehammer, let's say,
Okay.
and they're 120 feet away, they're standing there, they're shouting verbal threats, can deadly force be immediately necessary?
No.
Right. They don't have the opportunity to carry out that threat from that distance unless there's some kind of Norwegian Olympic hammer tosser. Giving a shout out to Len and Liberty on that one.
Right.
Eventually, they can become close enough where deadly force does become immediately necessary, right? If somebody's charging at you with a sledgehammer, eventually they're going to be within the range that deadly force is immediately necessary to prevent death or serious bodily injury. Agreed?
Agreed.
So let's say you draw down on them and they stop dead in their tracks and turn around and start running away. Is deadly force still immediately necessary?
No.
So that's just a small example of how you can have it not immediately necessary, become immediately necessary, then no longer immediately necessary.
Yeah. Kind of a finite window of opportunity there.
Somebody's slamming your head into the pavement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Deadly force immediately necessary?
Yes, sir.
Okay. They slam it in 3 times, you can't get to your gun. They get up, they start to walk away. You get to your gun. Is deadly force immediately necessary?
Not if they're walking away.
Okay.
Only if you can see straight.
There's a big difference between protection and revenge.
Mm-hmm. Right. Good point. Yeah.
And it's a life sentence worth of difference.
Yeah, makes all the difference.
Well, what if you shoot him in the leg?
It's still deadly force, Russ.
Yeah.
It's Joe Biden, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, don't take things from Brandon.
Yeah,
he's given 2 things as far as guns go that are totally ridiculous, right?
Oh, like shooting in the air, the warning
shooting in the air. Yeah, totally ridiculous.
Shoot a shot in the leg, then shoot one in the air.
Shooting in the leg is deadly force because
you could die
deadly force doesn't have to kill somebody. It's any type of force that's readily capable of causing death or serious bodily injury. And you shoot somebody in the leg, you can cripple them, right? It's readily capable of crippling or even making somebody bleed out. You hit that artery there.
Sure.
Lots of people die from getting shot in the leg.
Yeah. Not a good place.
So let's talk about this situation. Now, there's a split second over there where a jury would have to determine whether he had a reasonable belief that deadly force is immediately necessary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was his belief reasonable that somebody was shooting at him at one point? The issue is, certainly throughout the course of that fire, it becomes unreasonable to believe it's immediately necessary, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Once they're turning around and the question is going to be, okay, and when did you realize they weren't shooting at you?
Mm-hmm. Right.
When my gun was empty.
And I was when you're sitting there with your eyes closed, he's like squinting and his eyes are closed.
It's crazy.
You notice how he looks when he's doing that?
Might be a good time to hit the brakes.
Well, it looks like he was
maybe stop your car.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Or pit
I
maneuver
can't
them
imagine
off the
discharging a firearm in your vehicle like that to begin with.
Well, that's it.
You know?
That's another thing, right?
Yeah.
That's another thing is
Crazy.
paying attention to your surroundings and understanding what else is going on. Now, if he was legitimately under fire, they're coming up on the side of him and shooting into his vehicle,
Yeah, it's different.
At that point,
situation.
deadly force would be, he had a reasonable belief deadly force is immediately necessary.
Mm-hmm.
People might be concerned about other people being in danger under those circumstances. And there are cases in Pennsylvania. One of them was, there's a guy who was in a crowded nightclub. Bad guy comes, attacks him, and he ends up firing 3 rounds. One of them hits the bad guy, but one of them hits somebody behind the bad guy. The prosecutor argued that the use of deadly force against the bad guy was justified, but against the person behind him, the innocent bystander, wasn't justified. The court said, no. His use of force was justified under the circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And those 3 rounds were part of that justified use of force. Now, you might have a civil lawsuit on the back end of that. If they find that you didn't exercise the standard of care for one reason or another.
Right.
But ultimately, on the criminal side, there's case law that says that use of force is justified.
Yeah. Crazy situation.
Another example would be somebody comes in, they're going to rob the gas station. Yeah, Len says he wasn't worried about what was behind his target either. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was all over the place too. You could tell the gun was going everywhere.
Durso says, who records themselves acting this insane?
Right. Everybody's recording everything these days. That's the thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, everything's on camera, and
Sure.
having a dash cam isn't exactly unheard of, because it could be your greatest enemy and it can be your greatest ally. If you get into
guaranteed, though, this guy thought that was going to vindicate him.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Probably.
I mean,
it's all on tape. Give it right to you, officer. You'll see.
Right. Well, the only thing I could think of that was some sort of reasonable belief at the time, maybe, is if the guy threw like a full water bottle and it hit his car, and he heard that and thought that was some sort of impact from, being shot at. But
right. So
well,
maybe
especially if the cap hit the
depending
window.
on the surrounding circumstance, maybe based on information we don't have,
mm-hmm.
that part of it could be argued to be justified.
Right.
All of it?
No.
You're not wanting that.
Plus, if you're being shot at and the car's in front of you, just hit your brakes. Like, why would you continue to pursue that?
Avoid these situations at all costs.
Right.
I mean, how many of my cases are dealing with these road rage type situations where a lot of places where people don't even use force or display a firearm or anything, but there's just nothing positive comes out of these road rage situations. Even when you're arguing with other people, you get false accusations that come up.
Right.
Really, your best bet is to avoid it as best as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you have to pull over.
Sure.
If you have to drive to a police station.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, don't get involved with this back and forth with people. It just always ends badly.
Just keep making right turns, right?
That's guy, right?
Right.
Just keep making right turns, just driving circles.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Driving to a police station.
Yeah, no, that's good advice.
Way to go.
Mm-hmm.
People are driving behind you and stuff, and it's tough. But
yeah. No, people get worked up on the road, especially around here. You see it quite a bit. You never know what's going to happen on the Schuylkill.
The short kill.
Yeah, that's right.
Isn't that the nickname?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that and Route 1. I think Route 1 is like the boulevard's one of the most dangerous roads in the country.
Is it?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of pedestrians cross and they get hit because there's
popping out there.
Too many people walking across the road there, and you got those weird like cut throughs that go from the center 2 lanes to the outer 2 lanes, and people are constantly just sideswiping people, and yeah, not a great design, that road. So, but they have all kinds of speed cameras on there now.
So if you want my legal advice on on that video, it's pretty please don't do that.
Don't do that. don't be that dumb.
Job.
Don't be that guy.
Don't do that.
Yeah. Just take a chill pill. Relax. Peace and love. Yeah.
I mean, there's a few things going on in that clip, because he said the guy cut him off. That's one road rage, and then the other guy started tailgating him. That's another one, and then the other one threw a water bottle at him. Well, that's littering and road rage. And I mean, if the cap of the water, but if it was a full water bottle and the cap hit the window, that probably is going to sound like a bullet. Especially if it like breaks the window if you throw hard enough. Probably, I don't know. I never broke car windows on purpose.
They're hard to break.
They are hard to break. I hear they do that on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And then shooting through your own windshield, that's just dumb. There may not be a law. I'm sure you can shoot whatever you want through your windshield because it's your car and your gun and your bullets. But, it's just generally a stupid idea.
Russ, you cannot. No.
No, actually. Yeah.
You're not going to get the legal segment on this program.
No, and I'm not a lawyer, and I don't pretend to be one, but it's a stupid idea. Okay, but what I'm getting at is it's just a stupid idea to begin with.
Yeah.
Whether it's legal or not, it's
standing
stupid.
on your hood pointing a shotgun at you or something. There's really no good reason to be firing out your windshield.
I used to know dudes who would throw marbles out the sunroof and stuff. If people were tailgating them, or
what's that?
People throw marbles out.
I've heard stories like that. Yeah,
that sounds hilarious and ill-advised.
Or coins like nickels.
Yeah,
I'm not saying to do this. I'm saying that these are crazy New York.
Yeah, you hear these stories.
These are bad things.
The rogue brick out the sunroof.
Throw a brick.
Throw a bag of bees.
A bag of bees.
Yeah.
They're gonna get you. You've made a big mistake now, mister.
Okay, listen up, bees. I want you to get the guy behind me, all right? Okay, you're free now. No, not me!
To do that at a stoplight or something.
These bees have your name on them.
Get him, Sandro. Sick him, Bill.
Send William, who goes by Bill. Yeah.
William, who goes by Bill. I listened to that randomly that day. I love it.
It's great. It's good. Yeah.
Hear what anybody says.
I think we did okay with that one. Yeah. Have to do some more.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Rita says every bullet potentially has an attorney's name attached to it. You should always try to be aware of what's behind your target before you shoot. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So what else we got, Chris?
Let's see. Well, there's some more clips in there. I think Liberty had some stuff. Liberty, I don't know if you're there or not, but maybe we could.
Liberty is going to be, I think,
she's not
sitting out tonight.
Yeah. But. She had something in there.
Oh, I had a good one.
You got something
from a listener in the chat. And
okay.
Sent something over to us earlier. It's a tweet from Biden.
Oh, okay.
Oh no.
See what you got.
Well, I'm just going to read it. I didn't have time to get in the doc.
Okay.
I formed a new cancer cabinet, which will be convened in the coming weeks. They will drive the whole of government effort to unleash every possibility within our power to end cancer as we know it. It comes straight from Twitter.
Really?
Of Joe Biden.
He's going to fix cancer now all of a sudden out of the blue.
Couple of right, that's what I said.
Yeah,
my first reaction was
such a good job with everything else.
Listen, guys. I know we've had a tough time with my administration. Right. Gas is through the roof.
Yeah.
Inflation's going up. The stock market's in the toilet. So I figured we could try to focus on some small, manageable goals to get some momentum.
Jeez.
I'm going to cure cancer.
Oh, for God's sake.
Well, that's probably the only thing that could save his presidency right
probably.
Now. So. Let's see what he does. I have a feeling a lot more people are going to have cancer all of a sudden.
Yeah,
which is horrible.
Awful.
It is.
Well, you're gonna look in the history books 20 years from now and be like, well, Joe Biden was a failure as a president, but you know what? He cured cancer.
Yeah,
I mean, how bad could he be?
Second year of his presidency, somehow he cured it.
Yeah, he just cured it. He's just like, so Campbell's soup, have a lot of that and it'll go away.
Yeah. My goodness.
That's right. It was under our noses the whole time.
Private Potato.
Search Private Potato on YouTube. Watch the first video.
No thanks.
Don't try to find it, Russ?
Yes. Check it out.
Hold
up, Russ.
Pull it up. Russ, the producer, ladies and gentlemen.
I told a buddy of mine about the tweet.
Yeah.
And he said, first objective of the cancer cabinet, cancel Joe Rogan.
right. Yeah, they're going after him hard
I'm so
right now.
sorry your cabinet has cancer.
He
Can I
says,
transplant my
then
door?
he says, we're forming a cancer cabinet to eliminate the disease. We figure we'll get all the cancer into the cabinet, then lock the cabinet. Cancer's done.
Good job. 10 out of 10.
There we go. Oh, my goodness.
Okay, Len Larson says, I was on a motorcycle carrying 3 dozen live crabs in a bag. A woman cut me off on the boulevard, and the next light, while she's yelling at me, I gently tossed a live crab through her window. Bag of crabs.
Car
That's
of
good.
crabs.
That's a good self-defense.
Bag of crabs.
Yeah.
That's how you defend yourself in Jersey, right, Len?
Oh my goodness.
Carry a bag of crabs around with you.
There's some woman out there telling that story right now from her perspective. I looked at this light and this guy threw an attack crab.
Maniac.
He sicked his crab on me.
Threw a crab.
What's your crab's name? Eugene.
That's funny. I wonder what she did. She must have been freaking out. Suddenly there's a crab in your lap.
Well, I mean, it made her crabby.
Yeah.
Did you find the private potato video, Russ?
Ugh, you're going to make me do that, are you?
Come on now,
I
Russ.
already did.
Yeah. You can handle it. You can handle it. Oh, it was in Philly, of course. That makes sense, Len.
In place for this. Come on,
Shout out to the crabs.
Come on, man.
I might have to try that.
I have to find it now. What's it
Start
called?
keeping some
Private
crabs in the
potato?
car. It's pretty good.
Private potato.
Did you find it? Philly.
Is it a bald guy?
Guys, play the whoopee clip. Okay, so Liberty's asking us, maybe we can play that while you're looking for the other thing.
Oh, thank God.
Russ. Yeah, Liberty had taken some time to prepare some things, and we did have that whoopee clip. Yeah, she's been kind of in hot water right now. Yeah. Apparently, she was saying the Holocaust isn't about.
Well, hang
race,
on.
Yep.
Hang on.
All right.
Why don't we let Whoopi speak for herself?
Yeah.
We don't want to go mansplaining her problem. Here's Whoopi being dumb.
Okay.
So two schools are being accused of banning books after one in Washington State pulled To Kill a Mockingbird off their required reading list after complaints from students and parents, including a former black student who said it made her uncomfortable, and a Tennessee school pulled the graphic novel Mouse out of their lessons on the Holocaust because it contained some nudity and some bad language. Personally, I'm shocked because, given the story of Mouse, I'm surprised that that's what made you uncomfortable. The fact that there was some nudity and I mean, it's about the Holocaust, the killing of 6 million people, but that didn't bother you. But the naked.
I'm not sure that they don't use the naked part as a kind of a canard to throw you off from the fact that they don't like history that makes white people look bad.
Well, this is white people doing it to white people.
Yeah.
So this is, y'all go fight amongst yourselves, but don't,
Well, and look at what kids watch these days and the music they listen to say that when proving or showing them a work of history or art or something that happened is bad language or nudity, turn off reality TV, turn off the radio, turn off everything they're doing, because kids are exposed to this stuff really early in inappropriate situations, not ones where you're learning or teaching.
Yeah, and the nudity is a drawing of his mom who died during the Holocaust. I mean, in Mouse, which is the other thing. It's just insane.
But I don't know what's going on. Story
it's about the words.
It's about the N-word. The girl is triggered in the class by the word.
Because if you're sitting amongst lots of students and you're reading it out loud, it comes up a lot and makes people uncomfortable.
And especially if you're the only black
kid
student
in this,
there.
I mean, so that was what they're talking about triggering. I don't know if that should stop people from having it as reading, but it's stopping as required reading.
Well, there's an entire bill moving through the Florida legislature right now about banning any conversation in schools that make people feel uncomfortable because of their race or gender. And there's also in Florida a bill banning talking about LGBTQ conversations. It's being referred to as Don't Say Gay. So I don't know what's happening with all of this banning going on. We talked about Beloved being banned, mouse, To Kill a Mockingbird, conversations. I think it's making it very difficult to teach kids. And all these people who talk about and complain about people being snowflakes, how do you not raise snowflakes if you don't expose them to reality?
Right? This was the plan with these anti-history laws that started being passed, these alleged CRT laws that started being passed. I don't think people saw far enough into the future. You start banning discussions about race, then you start banning discussions about the Holocaust, then you start banning discussions about the LGBTQ community. That's where it started, and this was all very planned, and in my view. And what bothers me the most is people saying, I don't want my children to be uncomfortable. Well, how about your children being uncomfortable in a way of learning empathy, in a way of learning sorrow, in a way of being able to empathize with other people's plights? I've always said if my children are subjected to racism at a very early age, which they are, then your child should be okay with having a little bit of discomfort and learning about the racism that exists.
I observe that young children are naturally empathetic. Yeah. And that the empathy is kind of drained out of them by their parents and things that they hear out there.
It's that song. It's the
You've
song
got to
that
be
Barbara,
carefully
that's
taught
right.
from South Pacific.
Yeah.
You know, my grandson, I remember when he was around 3 or 4 years old, there was a kid who was in trouble for some reason, and I mean, it gives me chills. My grandson put his arm around the kid, like, I'm with you. And when you talk about empathy, children are naturally like that.
Well, it's the parents'
And
issue.
if you
It's the
teach a
parents'
white
issue.
kid what happened to his friend who happens to be black, he might feel terrible about what happened. That doesn't mean he feels bad that he did something.
Exactly.
This is a confusion that they're creating, I believe.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that colleges, this all started in colleges and universities and not wanting to make kids uncomfortable. And we talked about it once here on the show with actually Van Jones when he said, if I send my kids to school, I want them to be uncomfortable. I want people to push back on their beliefs because otherwise we're not preparing kids to go out into the real world. We're preparing them for a world that doesn't exist outside of their own house.
Well, also, if you're going to do this, then let's be truthful about it, because the Holocaust isn't about race. No, it's not about race.
Ethnicity. Well, they consider Jews a different race.
But it's not about race. It's not about race.
What is it about?
Because it's about man's inhumanity to man. That's what it's about.
But it's about white supremacy. It's about
but
going
it's
after
not. It's
Jews
not about
ideal race.
But these are two white groups of people.
Well, they go after black
They
people
see
too.
them as white.
But you're missing the point. You're missing the point. The minute you turn it into race, it goes down this alley. Let's talk about it for what it is. It's how people treat each other. It's a problem. It doesn't matter if you're black or white, because black, white, Jews, everybody eats each other. So if you're uncomfortable, if you hear about mouse, should you be worried? Should your child say, oh my God, I wonder if that's me? No, that's not what they're gonna say. They're gonna say, I don't wanna be like that.
Well, hopefully.
Well,
they play the music. Go to break. They're like, oh,
I
God.
think so.
No, this is going.
They're like, please stop, Whoopi. Okay,
terribly wrong.
So my take on this, I don't think Whoopi said this out of any kind of malice. I think through her eyes, she sees the word race as a color thing.
Well, she said black, white, Jewish, or Italian.
Well, she didn't
Right?
finish
Is
the
that
word
what she
Italian.
said? What? She didn't finish Italian.
Yeah,
but
she couldn't bring herself to include Italians.
she threw it in there. It gets separated.
I don't know. It's just pure insanity.
None of the
The whole
above,
conversation
Italian.
was just crazy.
Well, I think there was a fair amount of
There's a lot
pushback
to
from the other
unpack
women
there,
there.
though. Like,
Yeah.
So first of all, I'm not familiar with this book, Mouse. Are you, Philly Chris?
No, I'm not, actually.
So I don't know of what nudity they're speaking of or anything like that.
Does it matter? It's about mice.
I don't think so. I think
I'm going to look it up
About
here.
mice.
Driver's tail,
Not-
the front of dude's
not Russ.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, it had cats on the front. Do you want me to find the frame where they show it?
It's a nonfiction book presented in the graphic novel style, written by American cartoonist Art Spiegelman. Serialized from 1980 to 1991, it depicts Spiegelman interviewing his father about his experience as a Polish Jew and Holocaust survivor. The work employs postmodernist techniques and represents Jews as mice, Germans as cats, Poles as pigs, Americans as dogs, and the British as fish. So some interesting stuff going on there, but I have not seen the book, not familiar with it. So, How about that? Well, she finds herself in hot water. She doesn't sound too good. Well, she sounds different. Not looking too good
There we go. There's mice.
Oh.
Told you.
There is mice. I guess
cats.
it is about mice.
Yeah. Well, I guess
it's not about
why do you
mice.
think it?
The Jews are the mice in the book. So
yes.
I guess it's yeah. But apparently it's not about
well
race or ethnicity or whatever, according to Whoopi.
I don't think she was thoroughly educated on
much of anything.
Well, there's that.
Yeah.
I don't think she was thoroughly educated on what it was about, because anybody who's learned anything about World War II knows that Hitler wanted to do away with the Jews because he believed that they were an inferior race. And by the way, maybe she realized this by just doing a Google search, but you don't have to be white to be Jewish. It's not just white on white.
Right.
Jewishness knows no color. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. You're right.
It's
trust the producer, ladies.
That was just, I think that was just Whoopi having her foot in her own mouth and just
well, they seem to do that on that show.
Well, there's that.
Roseanne got canceled off of it, right?
I don't think Whoopi said it out of malice, out of like being anti-Semitic.
Not really sure what she's saying.
I don't know. Here's Whoopi's response to her own dumbness.
Oh, okay.
Want to see
all right.
that? I believe it was on Colbert. No, this is a different thing. Okay, so this is, I guess somebody
Liberty said something. We should read it out loud. I know everybody's seeing it in the chat. It says, can you imagine
where is it?
Whoopi saying it's not about race regarding any other race? She literally brings race into everything. Is she kidding herself?
Yeah, good point.
And then Liberty said, important perspective from a friend. Whoopi versus Roseanne Barr. Remember, Roseanne was banned and canceled. Whoopi gets a 2-week ban. They're already defending her.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I don't know why it's...
Jeremy says as soon as she said it wasn't about race is when the rest of them started doing the Homer Simpson back into the bushes.
and playing the outro music like, let's go to break, let's go to break. Whoopi, shut up!
Yeah, right. The producers back there like, damn it, Fred, play the music.
Yeah, they're up in the room like, play it out,
the music,
play it out.
Shut her up! Go to commercial!
We're doing it live. Play it out.
Oh, God.
Oh, what a
she
train wreck.
put her foot in her mouth and bit off her own toes. Cut the commercial.
Yeah. Crazy stuff.
Oh, man. All right, let's see her stupid response.
Factually, what was wrong with what Whoopi Goldberg said? The Holocaust was, in fact, about a master race and an inferior race. And that's just super factual. That isn't an opinion. We can't argue with that. But I understand where it's confusing because some Jews are white. So you think, oh, is race skin color? No. Just so you all know, Hitler thought there was a master race, and he would measure people's heads to make sure they fit. They took measurements, and if you weren't part of the master race, the Aryan race, you were an inferior race and to be eliminated. I strongly don't think she should have been suspended, and I'll tell you why. Mostly because of what you said, but also because of the word intent. I don't think Whoopi maliciously was trying to tell us that it wasn't a race war and we're being silly. I think she clearly didn't know, and had it been a moment where we had just had what we just had, the whole audience and everybody would have been elevated. Now, you shut her up, you get her out of there. She's already apologized. I believe her.
Russell, I think you just found your soulmate.
Yeah, there you go.
Nah.
You gotta get in touch with this lady.
How about no?
You're single, right?
Yeah.
Are you single, Russ?
For God's sake, Mike.
You single?
I don't know. Am I?
Are you single?
Well, if you're questioning it, if there's a girl out there who thinks you're not single, you're going to be very soon.
Yeah, right. If she's listening to the program anyway. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Russell, we were totally official. You're very exclusive.
Right,
How dare you?
What do we got here? Do we want to move on to Joe Rogan?
No, not yet. Are you single?
We're not ready to move on yet.
I'm a solitary man. How's that?
This is Russ's girlfriend.
Hello. Well, then that means that you're available to pursue this woman who's got the same exact viewpoint as you.
There
do.
you go. There you go.
Maybe just.
I think you ought to write her. Maybe Philly Crystal set it up. He can find anybody. Calling all of the private detectives that we have in the chat right now. I know we've got a couple listeners who are private detectives. We need to figure out how we get Russ set up with the lady in that video who had the same exact opinion. Right? You guys are really on the same page. How great would you get along, right?
Well, it's probably
ask her what she wants for breakfast in the morning. You'll finish each other's sentences, right?
Right.
I mean, unless she says Hot Pockets, then
yeah, you guys can share Hot
probably
Pockets.
Finish. She's like, oh my goodness, I've never met somebody who eats Hot Pockets for breakfast too.
Shut up, Mike. In a situation like that, I'd probably say the most unlikely thing. She's been dreaming of you coming along for her entire life, Russ. I don't know if anybody.
Tune in next week. We'll have Russ's girlfriend on.
Oh, for
Russ's new girlfriend.
Russ's new girlfriend. Yeah.
No.
Right.
You're gonna say.
This wasn't really Whoopi's response, was it?
You're gonna ask her, what do you want to do for a date? She's gonna say, how about we hang out in the garage and play video games all night?
Well, that differs from my answer because, well, it'd be more like hang out in the rec room.
Oh,
the garage is cold.
Oh, the rec room.
The garage is cold. I don't want to heat the garage.
It's like, oh well.
You don't want to make her comfortable.
I have to do it every Thursday for this show. I don't want to do that anymore. And the rec room has a bigger TV and better speakers. So.
Well, there you go.
Yes.
More comfortable.
It's official. Russ.
I would do whatever it takes to show off.
Have her on next week, Russ.
Oh, for God's sake!
Tune in next week. All right, what else we got?
What do you think of the discussion leading up to that, though? Because that gets overshadowed by Whoopi's comment, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I thought she did an apology on Colbert, is what I heard, but I don't. Or was it Colbert? I don't know. This is just going off my memory, which is historically awful.
What about the books, though? What do you think about that? Because they seem to have all been erring on the side of free speech, right?
So what I think of the book, so I've never read Mouse, but we did read To Kill a Mockingbird in either 10th or 11th grade for my specific case. And if I recall, we never actually, we read the book out loud. Nobody in the class ever said the N-word.
Right.
We either said bleep or some other substitute. It was like there was an unspoken agreement to just not say it. And I don't think there were any black kids or any my memory is awful, so I don't want to just not remember people, but I don't remember most of it. But it was like there was an unspoken agreement that nobody is to say this word because we just don't want to.
Right.
And it wasn't an official thing, and even the teacher kind of went along with not saying it. So I don't think having the word there is bad. I think including the word in the book as it was written is important, but I don't think people, when they read it out loud, have to say it.
Yeah, shouldn't be forced to say it out loud.
Yeah, nobody should be forced to say it.
Yeah.
True.
I get that.
Yep.
I get that. But to take it off the shelf completely, I mean, it's a great book. Some really good lessons in it. And
that was pretty standard reading in school.
Great value.
We also watched the movie to it as well.
Oh yeah.
And I picked up a DVD that I saw it at Walmart. It was like, I think 50th anniversary or something of either the book or the movie. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I
we had to watch that in law school. I had never watched that.
Oh yeah,
movie until law school.
Interesting.
It's good though.
Yeah, I don't think I ever saw it.
Robert Duvall shows up at the end.
Oh, all right. There we go. Yeah. Christopher Walken wasn't in there, was he?
No, it wasn't. Christopher Walken was not.
He's not in there.
Yeah, I think that it's a good book with good values for kids to learn.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable, right?
Right.
Well, that's a good point. to learn from history.
I think it very clearly explains. I do remember a lot of the details from it. I think it very clearly explains what racism is, and what I don't remember the outcome of the trial, but essentially the black guy was put on trial, and he couldn't have done it because he was missing an arm or something, and I don't remember the outcome.
Yeah.
Well,
it was a long
time. The lawyer stands up for him. That's what it's all about.
Well, that's a lawyer's job, isn't it?
Sometimes it's really hard to stand up for people, and it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So.
Well, DG makes a good point too. They're changing the curriculum. We're hearing about all this stuff going on in the schools lately. So, changing what's being taught.
Since you and the lady both talked about intent in your analysis of Whoopi, Len says if when you get your new girlfriend, the lady from the video, she'll ask you what your intent is. So she'll ask Russ what his intent is.
Right.
My intent is I was set up.
Wow, that's probably a good way to play it. Yeah, play it cool. Like you don't even want to be there.
Right, there you go.
I don't want to be there.
Play hard to get. Play hard to get.
It usually works for you, Russ, doesn't it?
Yeah. Talk to her in the third person the whole time. Russ don't have too much time. Russ is a busy guy.
Russ is the producer.
Russ has got ladies lined up around the block.
Hey, I'm allegedly the producer, all right?
When to date with Russ, you got to make an appointment.
That's right. That's right.
It must be pick on Russ night. Poor Russ. Oh, DJ's feeling sorry for me. Great.
You're in trouble when she's
oh God,
got your back.
All right. What's the next clip? I have a few here with the shrug guy, and I no context was given for these two, and these two were just said, comments.
What was the apology, though? Do you know the substance of Whoopi's apology?
I haven't seen her apology.
I don't know. I'd have to dig that up.
I don't remember at all what she said.
I don't know.
I don't know, but I was watching another show, and basically they summarized it as Whoopi made the Whoopi made the comments, but then she issued an apology, but she also did a taping with some comedian. I'm just gonna say Colbert. And that came out after the apology, where she basically doubled down, putting her foot in her mouth, saying that it's not about race. So she ended up in this kind of both feet in her mouth, so far up her mouth that she's kicking her own butt in return. Don't ask me how that works.
Not sure.
I'm not a doctor.
When you and Mike have a fight, we'll probably see
or a
how
proctologist.
There we go. What's this clip in here that Liberty had that she wanted me to comment on? Something about asteroids?
How about the fight in Pennsylvania?
I don't know.
What was
you want
that
me
one?
to just click on it? I don't know what it is. There was no context.
Whoopi, she tweeted, on today's show, I said the Holocaust is not about race, but about a man's inhumanity to man. I should have said it is about both. Jonathan Greenblatt from the Anti-Defamation League shared, the Holocaust is about the Nazis' systematic annihilation of the Jewish people, who they deemed to be an inferior race. I stand corrected. The Jewish people around the world have always had my support. That will never waver. I'm sorry for the hurt I've caused. Written with my sincerest apologies, Whoopi Goldberg.
I got news for her. We're all the same race.
It says, after her fiasco on The View, Whoopi Goldberg went on the Late Show with Stephen Colbert and repeated that she thinks that the Holocaust has nothing to do with race. Can't tell who's
right.
Jewish.
Nailed it.
The Holocaust was white on white. Klansmen wouldn't attack Jews because they're white.
Oh, Liberty put the apology in on number 18, she's saying, Russ, so it's in there.
Number 18.
Number 18. It's not titled for some reason, but it's in there. If you want to play that.
See an 18?
See what her apology is, ladies and gentlemen. Coming at ya. Russ, the producer. Shout out to Russ tonight.
Shut up, Chris.
Hey, man, I'm giving you a shout out. Hey now, Russ. Hey now.
Okay. How am I? This isn't a link. It's not a link till you hit enter.
She just added it.
No, I just added it.
Well, she's helping you out. Let's be nice. Thank you, Liberty. Shout out to Liberty. Hey now.
Hey now.
Is it gonna
Hey
load?
now, Liberty. Liberty Lee.
Is it gonna load?
It's not about race.
What is it about?
Because it's about man's inhumanity to man.
Oh, not one of these.
Oh, it's gonna be a
Oh.
video we have to read. It's like the worst kind
The
of
actor's
video.
comments came during a discussion about a Tennessee which banned the Pulitzer Prize-winning Holocaust graphic novel Mouse, citing
Well,
rough,
also, if you're going to do
objectionable
this,
language.
then let's be truthful about it, because the Holocaust isn't about race. No, it's not about race.
Who said no? Who agreed to that?
Well,
She needs to be canceled too. Then.
Maybe she was saying no as a question. Was she like no? Like
Groups of people.
no?
Black people see them as white men.
But you're missing the point. You're missing the point.
Yeah.
The minute you turn it into race, it goes down this alley. Let's talk about it for what it is. It's how people treat each other.
Well, not exactly.
apology after
Goldberg
campaign is
issued an
condemned for
apology
comments
after
as
campaign.
dangerous.
Whoops.
Can't read that.
Oh, I can just pause it here. It says, no, at Whoopi Goldberg, the Holocaust was about the Nazi systemic annihilation of the Jewish people, who they deemed to be an inferior race. They dehumanized them and used this racist propaganda to justify slaughtering 6 million Jews. Holocaust distortion is dangerous. Hashtag enough. Newsflash. Oh, this is from stopantisemitism.org. Newsflash at Whoopi Goldberg. 6 million Jews were gassed, starved, massacred because we were deemed an inferior race by the Nazis. How dare you minimize our trauma and suffering! Exclamation point.
Wow. Hot water for Whoopi.
Yeah. Looks like Whoopi.
That's the one that I read.
That one there.
Oh, okay.
The Guardian.
Yeah, thanks, The Guardian.
I can't
for all
stand
the
those
video that I had
videos.
to
I'm sorry.
I know, yeah, they're kind of annoying. They edited that up pretty good too and added some dramatic music, you know.
Good job,
Gotta-
Guardian.
Got to add to the drama. Drama.
Do you think that what she was saying was trying to? I don't know. I don't even want
Maybe
to
she just wasn't so clear about it. I
figure
think
out.
she was trying to just say that, you know, like humans are flawed and we're violent, and there's some truth in that, I suppose.
Right.
But to make it, you know, not about race isn't necessarily.
Well, I think I
correct either,
understood
so.
what she was also trying to say. She said she corrected herself and said it was about both. It was man's, I forget what.
Inhumanity, I think she
man's
said.
inhumanity toward man, and
Yeah.
I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think she could have articulated it a little better by not saying, "Oh, it's not about race."
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't she traditionally make everything about race, though?
I don't know. I don't watch.
I think
the
she
view.
leans that way, but I don't really
not a
watch her
glutton
too
for
much. Yeah.
punishment.
Yeah, I don't know for sure. But you know,
I can't sit
there's a
there
lot of
and
that going on these days.
watch hens
Unfortunately.
cluck all day.
I guess I shouldn't. I don't know enough about her specifically.
Yeah.
I do recall seeing quite a few wild leftist things coming out of her mouth, but
yeah.
I mean, it's on The View, which I believe is on NBC. So wild leftist things coming out of somebody's mouth isn't exactly a shock.
Right.
Liberty says there's a Joe Rogan clip, RE, a race issue.
Yeah, I haven't
don't know
seen
what
this, but I heard
RE
something
means.
about it.
Is RE replying?
They're going after him though quite a bit right now.
Also about Spotify, guys, Joe Rogan issued statement. Second, yes, racism starts with evil and humanity, but Whoopi makes everything about race. Apparently not the Holocaust, though.
Yeah.
everything except.
Right. Yeah. Except that. That's
Where'd the
crazy.
thing go? Hang on.
Oh, people are nuts.
The news cycle is just crazy every day.
All right, so what
Can't
were we
make this
gonna
stuff
do?
up.
Joe Rogan?
All right, Joe Rogan. Let's see what happens.
Okay, so we do
Rogan.
have an update to a story that we talked about yesterday. Spotify chose to keep Joe Rogan's podcast after Neil Young gave them an ultimatum. Neil Young's music, including his hits like Harvest Moon, are off the world's #1.
Hey, Neil Young, screw you. We'd rather have Joe Rogan. Man. You guys can have me or you can have Joe Rogan, but you can't have both. All right, screw you. Get lost.
Love these people that give
Streaming
ultimatums.
platform. You could not listen to them anymore. Neil asked Spotify to remove his content because he said Joe Rogan's podcast was, quote, spreading fake information about vaccines, potentially causing death to those who believe this disinformation. Now, in a statement, Spotify said, we want all the world's music and audio content to be available to Spotify users. With that comes great responsibility in balancing both safety for listeners and freedom for creators. Okay, so Jeff, who decides what's misinformation or not? How do you think Spotify came to this conclusion?
That's a great question. What's misinformation and what's wrong information, right? I think there's two different sides to that, isn't there?
It's
two different things, right?
Well, there might be two different sides politically, but then if you ask the medical community, they're going to say there's only one side based on data.
Well, no, but it's different because, like you said, Jeff, disinformation is when you know what you're saying is wrong and you're intentionally saying it. Misinformation is like, oh, the party's Saturday, but it's Friday. I'm giving misinformation, but I'm not doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
So, like, there is a difference. So, good.
I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
What I want to talk about is Spotify, right? And I think as a company, they are #1 streaming service in the world because of Joe Rogan, not because of Neil Young. And I don't think you bring ethics into billion-dollar decisions, even though you should. At some point, when you're making that much money, you have to go where the money is. And I think people are tuned into Spotify for Joe Rogan. If you want Neil Young, you could go anywhere you want. I don't think Neil Young cares that he's off Spotify. It's not monetary to him. He's Neil Young, right? He's trying to make a point, and he made his point, right? His point got across. I like Neil Young, like I said, not all of his songs. I like Joe Rogan, not all of his songs, as we will talk about shortly.
Joe Rogan has songs?
It's just, I think for Spotify specifically as a company, they had to make, if you put up an ultimatum, expect that back, right?
Interesting. And you brought up that we're going to talk about something a little bit later. So let's just dive into it because I know that a lot of our very own viewers have something to say about this next topic. Speaking of Joe Rogan, he's coming under fire for another recent podcast of his, where he shared a very controversial take on the term black. Here's what Rogan had to say.
The black and white thing is so strange because
like
the shades are so
tan and brown.
There's such a spectrum of shades of people. Unless you're talking to someone who is like 100% African from the darkest place where they're not wearing any clothes all day and they've developed all that melanin to protect themselves from the sun. You know, even the term black is weird. And when you use it for people that are literally my color, it becomes very strange.
Al?
You know, I have a couple things to say, and I'm glad we have a little while to unpack this. You know, Erica, as I listened to that, it sounded like, because I listened to it this morning, I promised myself in 2022 I was not going to just go off of clips. I was going to try and listen to most of it. It's 4 hours. I got to about 2.5 hours of it. And most of it made what he just said make sense in that it was men talking about things that they don't know for an extended amount of time. This just happened to be another topic about something they know nothing about. My grandmother had a complexion closer to Jeff's and an eye color closer to Tori. Just blue eyes, white skin, blonde hair. She was born in Mississippi in the 1920s, 30s. I would argue to say that she had a black experience, and that did not have to do with her skin color, because we all know that the black experience has nothing to do with skin color. It has to do with this country. I've been to Europe 24 times, and they don't talk about white and black over there. There's African. There's German. 2 German guys just walked in. Oh, I hung out with these 3 Irish guys last night. They don't talk about black and white because black and white is a concept that is germane to this country. So we have to be honest about this conversation. That conversation to me stunk of dishonesty. It was cowardice in that if you're going to talk about it, go there. We go there. Say what you want about DBL. I'll toot our own horn. We have some serious, uncomfortable, possibly career-altering conversations on this show on live TV. We're not a podcast. So if you're going to have that conversation, go ahead and have it, but don't have this juvenile, tangential conversation over here that should be happening at a Crayola factory about what color certain things are. This has nothing to do with color, and I should hope that they knew that it did.
Wait, what? Nothing to do with color?
I'm not really sure what he's talking about.
I don't know. Joe Rogan was discussing color, and he's like, no, that's nothing to do with color. I'm just, Yeah, I'll just continue. I'll shut up.
Okay. All right. Thanks,
Erica, because that would be almost scarier than the conversation we just heard.
What's scary about?
Al, I'm glad you shared about things that you will and will not be doing in 2022. My experience for what I will not be doing in 2022 is explaining to people what Black means and the Black experience. It is exhausting, it's super problematic, and if you don't know by now, I don't know how to help you. I mean, this conversation was problematic at best. It was racist at worst. I honestly, for two people who are not Black in any shade or capacity to sit here and dissect and the way it was done. Like, you don't, I have a lot of African friends who are like, I'm not Black, I'm Nigerian. You know, like, they're very specific about who they are and where they come from. And then also just the idea of African people are constantly talking about what it means to be from a specific country in Africa, because we constantly are bombarded with these conversations and this imagery that these are undeveloped nations that they're coming from. And that is simply not the truth. For Joe Rogan to put it in that way, like, we were on our morning call, and I'll just be like, pull the curtain. I fell off the treadmill when our producer read that statement. And I too went back and listened to the podcast because I really wanted to understand the context, but I couldn't quite get past two white men saying that a Black man is not Black and then dissecting what it means to be Black. It was just, it's 2022, and I'm not going to explain it to you. We had the conversation about Neil Young, Spotify, Joe Rogan. Spotify made the decision to side where the money resides. That is, period, point blank.
Erica, I want to show you, and I'm sure you and Al have seen this before, but I would love our viewers to see what Trevor Noah's take on what Joe Rogan said.
How long is this
is what he
clip,
said last night.
I don't know, but they're showing Trevor Noah. You got to watch out for those guys with two first names. Also, I want to point out on record that I hate the reasoning that, oh, it's insert current year here. I don't have to explain anything. Like, you know what? Don't, because you'll just put your foot in your mouth. You'll dig your hole deeper.
Yeah, Jeremy says
it's 2022. We can question
reality. I'm not going to educate you to correct your ignorance, so I keep calling you racist and ignorant.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I won't bother to explain why, except stating the current year. Like, I think there's something to be said about, you know, if somebody is saying something that isn't quite right.
Can't we just like make fun of Neil Young? I was looking forward to it.
Right.
I don't even know who Neil Young is, so if that doesn't make fun of him enough, then
if I had a tragic accident and cut off all of my fingers except for half of my pinky, I would bet money, as much as I can get my hands on, that I could still play a guitar solo better than Neil Young.
As much as you can get your hands on.
After cutting,
before or after cutting off your fingers?
Yeah, as much as I can get my hand and a half on.
Yeah, we got to have you play some guitar soon on the show. Maybe we can open next week with Hurt. What do you think?
Might be the worst lead guitar player.
Is that right? Really? Okay.
To ever live.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go listen
to
some of that. Yeah.
Wow. Well,
can we play some of that, Russ, or we can't really do that?
Well, I see this is on Comedy Central.
If you've ever heard Rockin' in the Free World, listen to the solo. It's
Rockin' in the Free World.
Shut up, Chris. You're gonna get us demonetized.
Oh, come on now, Russ.
Not for singing that.
Yeah.
Make it a political statement. Call it the unfree world.
Yeah.
Because
rage on behalf of the
that's
machine.
a good point. You know?
No freedom of speech world.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's ridiculous that people are doing these ultimatums, and you know, like you just said, it's not so free. I mean, let's all leave each other alone.
There's this meme going around saying that Yoko Ono has threatened to put her music on Spotify.
I saw that, right? Yeah.
That is great. That's
screaming.
Hysterical. We should. I wish we could watch that. We should. We probably can watch some of it.
Yeah, we could.
But it's just totally If you've never seen Yoko Ono ruin a Beatles song,
I need to see that.
It's incredible.
What's going on?
All right, are we ready? So already, I don't think this guy's going to be funny because he's commenting on Joe Rogan. This is on.
No, we're not watching this.
Oh,
We're calling
okay.
it
Well, I was going to say it's on Comedy Central, and I don't think it's going to be a whole lot of comedy.
Yeah.
So
we'll call it a night.
Not.
Yeah.
We'll call it a night.
Sounds like a
Call it
plan.
night.
Right.
Well,
right.
Thank you, everybody, for being here once again. It is always great to have everybody here. Lots to talk about, and looking forward to seeing everybody again next week. That's all the time we've got for today. Stick around for We the People, the Constitution Matters. Pastor David Whitney, Professor Philadelphia. I'll be joining as your legal analyst. We miss you, Ellie. Daddy loves you.